What up, guys? JT Anime Nerd here, bringing you all that nerdy goodness. Today, I'm here to give you something special, and that is a video compilation of what I call the Dawn of Justice arc, which is basically phase 1 of my version of the DCEU slash Snyderverse. I originally wanted to call them phases just like Marvel, but I feel like calling them arcs differentiates them from a bit. Now, please note that this will be in release order, not chronological order. So movies like The Green Lantern, Wonder Woman, and Ben Affleck's Batman will serve as kind of flashback stories to introduce characters or the concepts of certain heroes. So, kick back, relax, and please enjoy the Dawn of Justice arc. Also, if you like this video, don't forget to like, share, Hulk smash that subscribe button, and don't forget to turn on the notification bell to be updated on recent videos. Also, be sure to check out our merch store, linked in the description and pinned comment down below. With all that said and done, I give you the Dawn of Justice arc.
It begins with a Kryptonian couple. Jor-El stands by while his wife Lara Zor-El struggles to give natural birth to their son, but succeeds, naming their boy Kal-El. On the meadows of planet Krypton, it was as if the baby's cry was responding to the wildlife. As the sun sets, a shattered moon is present above the planet of Krypton. Kryptonian ships surround the capital city of Kandor, where Jor-El warns the Kryptonian Council of the planet's inevitable destruction due to the expenditure of its resources. As the Kryptonian Council asks for a greater solution from Jor-El, General Zod appears to take control of Krypton, killing a council member in response. Jor-El tries to reason with Zod, but Zod instead asks Jor-El to join him and eliminate the bloodlines he blames for this catastrophe, to which Jor-El refuses. While Jor-El is being escorted down a hallway by Zod's men, a Kryptonian drone appears to distract the men and give Jor-El a chance to retaliate. Jor-El contacts his wife and tells her to ready the launch. Jor-El goes outside to find that Kandor has been turned into a battlefield, leading to Jor-El to call down a winged Kryptonian beast for transport. Jor-El makes his way to the Genesis Chamber to acquire the codex that gave Krypton its artificial life, a mysterious skull etched with strange markings. Zod's men attempt to take the codex back from Jor-El by force, but fail, leading Jor-El to make his way back to his wife and child, but losing his flying companion Haraka in the process. After reuniting with his family, Jor-El readies the codex and plots a course for planet Earth, knowing what the sun will do to him and how the people of Earth will react. Lara tries to make excuses to keep Kal-El at her side, but Jor-El's words allow her to relent. After saying their goodbyes, Jor-El imbues the codex into Kal-El's cells and forms the key to his ship. Jor-El and Lara place him into the ship, placing their dreams with Kal. Meanwhile, General Zod blasts through the doors and enters the launch station. As Lara gets the pod ready with Kal ready to launch, Faora, Zod's second in command, tells Zod that an engine has been detected, leading Zod to realize a launch is happening as they speak. As Zod enters the launch station, Jor-El waits with his Kryptonian armor donned. Zod demands the Codex, with Jor-El claiming that Krypton has a second chance to thrive, and reveals that they've had a child, the first natural birth of Krypton in centuries, which Zod calls heresy. Zod attempts to stop Jor-El, but Lara launches the pod despite Zod's pleas. Enraged, Zod kills Jor-El, and Lara can do nothing but cry for her husband. In response to Zod's demand and to know where the baby is, Lara simply tells him that Kal-El is beyond his reach. Zod attempts to have one of his ships destroy Kal's pod, but the Kryptonian Council's army stops him in the nick of time. Moments later, Zod and his crew are sentenced to be imprisoned within the Phantom Zone, but vows to Lara that he will find Kal-El. After Zod and his crew are transported into the Phantom Zone, Lara awaits the inevitable, telling her drone Kelor that Jor-El was right, that this is the end. Before dying in the explosion, Kara tells Kal to make a better world than theirs. After Krypton explodes, Kal's pod eventually reaches Earth and crash lands on a farm in Smallville, Kansas. Years later, Kal-El, now named Clark Kent, is working on a fishing boat. Clark's almost hit by a falling fishing cage, but is saved by a fellow fisherman. The boat then gets word of an oil rig on fire, to which Clark, someone the captain refers to as Greenhorn, decides to act on his own and try to save the people on the oil rig. After evacuating the people, Clark attempts to keep the rig from getting destroyed from a falling piece of the rig, to which he succeeds, but gets pushed into the water below. Unconscious in the water, Clark looks back to a day at school where his super senses were overwhelming him, leading him to hide in a school hallway closet. Clark hears the kids judge him while his mom tries to comfort him after she arrives at the school. Clark claims that the world's too big, and so Clark's mother, Martha Kent, tells him to make it smaller and focus on her voice, allowing him to control his powers and exit the closet, giving his mom a big hug. Back in the present, Clark steals some new clothes and attempts to get back home to Smallville. Having another flashback, Clark thinks back to a day when his school bus caught a flat tire and fell into a nearby river. Unbeknownst to everyone, other than his childhood friend Lana Lang and his childhood bully turned friend Pete Ross, he saved everyone, and he also saved Pete from drowning. Days later, Pete's mom tries to pry into Clark's family's business, telling Clark's parents about what her son saw, all pertaining to Clark's powers, and preaching them as an act of God. Meanwhile, Clark's dad, Jonathan Kent, tries to tell Clark that he needs to keep his powers hidden, and that there's more at stake than just the people around him. As Clark begins to question if he's cursed, Jonathan decides to show Clark the pod they found him in, and the key they found that was said to not even exist on the periodic table, revealing that Clark is an alien. Despite Clark's resentment of himself, his dad tries to tell Clark that there was a reason he was sent to Earth. Back in the present, Clark works as a waiter, but sees a fellow waitress being harassed, leading Clark to intervene and almost get into a fight. Moments later, when the harasser exits the diner, he comes to find that his truck's been destroyed in an inhuman manner, mainly due to him belittling and Clark and treating him badly before he left. Meanwhile, in the Arctic, a reporter from the Daily Planet named Lois Lane and her intern photographer Jimmy Olsen arrive on a military site, being there to investigate something abnormal buried in ice. Lois and Jimmy meet with Colonel Hardy and Dr. Emil Hamilton, all investigating a 20,000-year-old ship of some kind under the ice. That night, Lois sneaks away from the site to take some pictures, only to notice someone head for the direction of the buried ship. Meanwhile, Clark heat visions his way through the ice, discovering the Kryptonian ship beneath it. Clark investigates and finds a panel for the key to his ship, and then inserts it, but not all the way, causing a Kryptonian defense drone to attack him. Clark shuts it down by inserting the key all the way in, but then sees what appears to be a familiar man down the hall. Lois Lane enters the ship, while Clark continues to investigate, seeing this man appear left and right. Just then, Lois encounters the Kryptonian defense drone while Clark finds a decayed Kryptonian body within a pod, as well as an empty pod. After taking a picture of the drone, the flash of the camera causes it to lash out and attack Lois. Hearing the commotion, Clark steps in to save her. After a slight panic, Lois calms down, and Clark checks to find a wound on her body. Warning Lois about the pain beforehand, Clark decides to cauterize the wound with his heat vision, causing Lois to scream in a great pain. Suddenly, the Kryptonian ship rises and flies away from the military site, revealing to Hardy and Emil that this was an extraterrestrial ship. Lois is later found on an iceberg, doing her best, and moments later does her best to post the story of her encounter with the ship and the unknown man. However, Lois and Jimmy's boss, Perry White, denies the story, not wanting to take the alien thing seriously. In response, Lois and Jimmy do whatever they can to find Clark. Meanwhile, Clark is somewhere else in the Arctic, now face to face with an image of Jor-El's consciousness. Jor-El reveals everything to Clark, that he's his father, his birth planet of Krypton, his birth name, and even the story of Krypton, the Kryptonian expansion, an era where Krypton spread its reach to other planets, with the scout ship Clark is standing in being one of them. Jor-El states that they've used machines to terraform planets for over 100,000 years, and flourished by accomplishing wonders. Sadly, when artificial life for Krypton was founded, the space exploration and outposts were abandoned. This resulted in using up their planet's resources and making Krypton's core unstable. Jor-El then explained that General Zod would attempt to take over Krypton, but ensured Clark's safety on Earth before Krypton would be destroyed. Jor-El then shows Clark the Genesis Chamber, the place where Kryptonians would be born artificially, revealing that every Kryptonian child's role was predetermined before birth. However, Jor-El's belief in freedom led him and Lara to give life to Clark, their hope for an embodiment of choice in life. Jor-El then reveals that he and Lara were tied to Krypton's fate, and so had to die with it. But Jor-El told Clark that he can embody both worlds, as he was much a part of Earth as he was of Krypton. Jor-El then presents Clark with his Superman suit, telling Jor-El to give humanity a hope, what the symbol on his Kryptonian suit stands for in their language. Clark exits the ship, donned in his Superman suit. Jor-El's voice then explains that Clark's powers are tied to the yellow sun's radiation. Superman then begins to test his flight, not getting the hang of it at first. Jor-El's voice tells Clark that he'll give humanity something to strive for, and that they will join him in the sun in time. Clark then tries to fly again, finally mastering his new power. Lois and Jimmy begin to search for clues however they can about Clark's whereabouts, even going to Clark's mother Martha for answers. Lois and Jimmy would eventually meet Clark at the Smallville cemetery. Clark then explains to Lois how his father Jonathan kept telling him that the world would reject him if he revealed himself too soon. Through a flashback, Clark explains the story of when he last saw his father, who he had an argument with, before a tornado came in and threatened the lives of everyone on the highway. Jonathan risked his life to save their family dog, and as the tornado was getting closer, Clark was about to attempt to rescue him. However, Jonathan signaled Clark not to save him, believing that it was too early for anyone to know about who he truly was, and so sacrificed himself to ensure his son's safety and future. In the present, Clark explained that he let his father die because he trusted his father's belief that the world wasn't ready to know about him yet, making Lois and Jimmy think for a moment. Back at the Daily Planet, Perry lectures Lois about letting one of her sources leak her story online, but Lois states that she's done chasing the story, surprising Perry. Despite that, Perry punishes Lois by docking her pay for 2 weeks. He, however, exerts that he believes that she did see something, but thinks she's doing the right thing by dropping it, worried with how the public would react to someone like Clark being out there or in the world somewhere. Clark returns home, greeting his mom and telling her about Lois and Jimmy, as well as what he discovered about himself, his parents, his planet, and his people. Martha expressed on how she was worried the world would take him away from her, but he expresses that that'll never happen. Meanwhile, a man named General Swanwick meets with Dr. Emil Hamilton, learning that an unidentified alien ship is hovering over the planet, looking to make a dramatic entrance. As the news reports the sightings of the spaceship, a message from the ship then takes over the airwaves all over Earth. The messenger was General Zod of Krypton, telling the world of the existence of Clark, but still not knowing his identity. General Zod warns humanity to surrender to Clark in exchange for Earth's safety, giving Clark 24 hours to surrender or watch the Earth suffer for his secret. With her source revealing her name to the news involving Clark, Lois is taken by the FBI as a result. Meanwhile, Clark is sitting on a bench, struggling what to do. Clark then has a flashback of a bully attempting to force him to fight, but to no avail. Pete Ross is the only one who helps Clark off the ground, proving that he can inspire people to be good. Clark expresses to his dad that he wanted to fight back, but Jonathan tells him that one day he's gonna kind of person who's gonna change the world. Suddenly pulling up in his car, next to Clark, Jimmy Olsen arrives, telling Clark he looks like he could use a friend at the moment, and invites him to his newly bought home in Smallville, to which Clark wholeheartedly agrees. On the way to Jimmy's house, Clark expresses an apology for all the trouble he's putting him and pretty much the whole world in just due to being here. However, Jimmy holds no blame toward Clark, stating that the only thing Clark is guilty of is trying to live his life, which is not something to be sorry for. If anything, no matter what you are or where you come from, you should be able to live your life to the fullest. He then pulls up in front of. As Jimmy and Clark enter Jimmy's house, Clark is greeted by none other than Jimmy's wife Lucy Lane, who's also Lois's sister and is showing to be pregnant, much to Clark's surprise. Jimmy then jokingly asks Clark how he even thinks he got out a job with Lois in the first place as her intern, also stating that if he can get the reporter job, he can provide for the new addition to his family. Despite the impending threat, Clark, Jimmy, and Lucy all have an incredible and fun dinner, showing how even in the darkest of times, and even though they believe it might be their last moments on Earth, they spend their day as best as they can as a family, proving to Clark that while humanity may be flawed, it's capable of growth and learning from their experiences. As Jimmy is the as Jimmy and and Lucy are standout examples of what his parents tried to teach him. After the visit, Clark does jokingly ask if Jimmy had any ulterior motives with his visit, to which Jimmy expresses that he had no ulterior motives, but just wanted Clark to get his mind off of everything that's going on for at least a bit, and just give him a happy moment in case this is his last day on Earth. Jimmy then states that he and Lucy are leaving their house for a while to visit family outside of Metropolis for a while to spend time with them, leading to him and Clark parting ways. Moments later, Clark, now as Superman, gives himself up to the military, but in exchange for Lois's freedom. Superman meets with Lois, telling him why he's surrendering. Superman is then informed by General Swanwick that he's been ordered to hand Superman over to Zod, to which Clark simply tells him to do what he has to do. Even more moments later, after Clark and Lois say their goodbyes, Zod's ship arrives, with Faora exiting and stating that Zod wants both Clark and Lois, despite that not being part of it. Lois relents, agreeing to go along with them. After leaving on the ship, Clark gives Lois the Kryptonian key to his ship pod, while Faora gives Lois a breathing helmet, as the atmospheric composition within their main ship is not compatible with humans. They arrive at the main ship, meeting General Zod for the first time in person. Clark then feels weak to the atmospheric composition of the ship, causing him to cough blood, with Zod stating that whatever's happening has to run its course before Clark can get better. Within Superman's mind, he sees an image of Zod, who now knows his true identity after probing his mind. Zod then explains to Clark what happened after they were sent to the Phantom Zone, as they finally re-emerged, but Krypton was already destroyed, and it was the destruction that freed them from the Phantom Zone. Zod then explains how they were able to turn the Phantom Projector into a hyperdrive, allowing them to move across the universe as they saw fit. They reached an abandoned outpost, but found what is called a world engine, a device capable of terraforming planets. For 33 years, Zod and his crew waited until Superman triggered a distress beacon on the scout ship in the Arctic, claiming that Clark is the one that led them there. Clark then sees an image of the world engine landing on Earth, with Zod then explaining that Jor-El stole the codex from the Registry of Citizens on Krypton, storing it on the capsule that brought Clark to Earth. Zod then reveals that he plans to revive Krypton on Earth, with the image of the world engine terraforming the planet. Clark then asks what happens to Earth in response, with Zod revealing that a foundation has to be built over something. Clark then begins to sink in an image of human skulls on the ground, Clark screaming at Zod in response. Clark then wakes up from the probe, with Zod revealing that he himself killed Jor-El, but despite his regret, he'd do it again for the sake of Krypton's survival. As they begin experimenting on Clark, Lois is placed in a cell, asking Faora why she's even there, with Faora revealing that they tracked her DNA signature in the scout ship by connecting the data on their ship to the scout ship, even finding out about how Clark saving her life, making them put two and two together that they meant something to each other, basically telling Lois that she's just for ransom in case Clark gets out of line. While trapped in the cell, Lois finds a panel to insert the Kryptonian key into, allowing the image of Jor-El to appear before her and take over the ship's controls to allow her to escape. Zod's ships head for Smallville, while Jor-El helps Lois escape, and in turn helps Clark escape despite them taking his blood. Lois escapes in a pod but nearly dies as it was badly damaged. Before Clark goes to save her, Jor-El confirms to Clark about the Codex, but wanted Clark to learn how to be a human first, so that when the time was right, he could bridge both worlds. Jor-El tells Clark that he can save Lois and all of humanity, leading Clark to embrace his role as Superman. Clark saves Lois from falling to her death, with Lois revealing that they probed her mind. Meanwhile, Zod appears on Clark's farm, threatening Martha to tell him where the Codex is. Faora finds Clark's pod, but no sign of the Codex. Enraged, Superman attacks Zod for threatening his mother. Zod then removes his helmet, as it was badly damaged by Superman's attack, activating his enhanced senses under the Earth's sun, overwhelming him as it did Clark when he was just a kid. Zod's loyal soldiers, Faora and Namek, retrieve Zod and withdraw him from Smallville while they stay behind to fight Clark. Suddenly, the military begins firing at Superman and his adversaries, not realizing that Superman's on their side. Namek attacks one of the jets, destroying it in the process, while Faora goes to strike the other one, but Superman intervenes, taking the fight to a nearby IHOP. During the fight, Faora brags about her lack of morality giving her an evolutionary advantage. Superman struggles to defeat Faora and Namek, but the two then turn their attention to the military, leading Superman to save them as he can. Faora then steers her sight on the soldiers that attack her, killing each of them with ease while Superman fights Namek. Faora gets ready to fight Hardy one-on-one with a blade, claiming that a good death is its own reward. Superman then charges in, saving Hardy from a needless death. Superman then gets hit with a train thrown by Namek, as Superman had hurled him into a train yard earlier. Namek retrieves an unconscious Faora and escapes. Superman then exits the building he was flung into, surrounded by military soldiers that have their guns on him. Despite this, he refuses to fight any of them and walks slowly past them, facing Hardy, who claims that Superman is not their enemy. Clark returns home to find his mother okay, but the house destroyed. Clark confides in his mother about how the Codex can bring his people back, but the Kryptonians have no intention of sharing the world. Lois then arrives, claiming she knows how to stop them. Meanwhile, the scientist that took some of Clark's blood, Jack Zor, relays to Zod that he's located the Codex, revealing that the Codex was never in the capsule, but placed within Clark's individual cells by Jor-El. The scientist confirms that to Zod that Clark needn't be alive to have the Codex extracted, and so Zod releases the World Engine upon the Earth. As the military detects two World Engines, they land on Earth, with the military discovering that it will terraform the Earth, wiping out humanity in the process. As the World Engines begin to terraform the planet, the one in Metropolis begins creating grave disaster for the people within Metropolis, increasing the Earth's mass and manipulating its gravity. Moments later, Swanwick and Emil meet with Lois and Superman, and with Superman revealing that at the pod he came to Earth in what has what's called a phantom drive, capable of creating a singularity to destroy the World Engine in Metropolis, as they're both made from the same technology. Superman plans to deal with the World Engine at the Indian Ocean, despite being near it might make him weaker due to the atmospheric transformation. Back on Zod's ship, he leaves Faora in charge while he secures the Genesis chamber. As the military get ready for the plan, Zod manages to finally control his new powers and senses, now stronger than ever. The image of Jor-El tries to argue and plead with Zod to stop, but to no avail. Meanwhile, Superman attempts to stop the World Engines, which releases a series of tentacles in defense of itself. The military begins attacking the World Engine in Metropolis, while it continues to causing havoc to the people below. In all the commotion, Perry White and two employees of the Daily Planet try to escape to safety, only for a building to fall down and nearly crush them to death. Jor-El continues to argue with Zod about coexistence, but the argument ends with Zod telling Jor-El that he will harvest the codex from Superman's corpse and rebuild Krypton atop his bones before Jor-El's image is terminated. While Superman continues to fight a world engine, Perry attempts to help one of his employees alongside another employee before the gravity beam of the world engine reaches them. Despite the struggle, and as Perry and his employees get ready for their possible deaths, Superman charges upward, finally destroying the first world engine, leading the one in Metropolis to shut down. While the military gets ready to drop the pod on the last world engine, Clark tries to re-energize himself with the sun's light. Noticing their plan, Feora attempts to stop them before they succeed, with Zod flying the ship behind them. However, Superman intervenes, with Zod warning Superman that Krypton will be destroyed if he destroys the ship. With Superman responding that Krypton had its chance, Superman uses his heat vision to destroy Zod's ship, giving Hardy the chance to continue the plan. Meanwhile, Emil discovers why the pod's phantom drive won't activate, and he fixes it by aligning the piece of the pod and allowing the key to be inserted, but not completely in the keyhole. Suddenly, Feora attacks the aircraft, attempting to stop them, leading Hardy to head for the main controls. Feora tries to follow, but does get slightly slowed down by the distraction of killing everyone in her way. Meanwhile, Dr. Emil inserts the key fully into the pod, activating the Phantom Drive. While Hardy makes it to the controls, he tells Feora that a good death is its own reward, sending the aircraft with the Phantom Drive to dive bomb the world engine. The energy of the Phantom Drive throws Lois out of the aircraft, saving her from being sacrificed in the kamikaze that ultimately destroys the world engine, and sends the Kryptonians nearby back to the Phantom Zone. As Lois is falling, Superman then saves her once again, and escapes the implosion of the world engine. Perry and his employees look on as Superman and Lois land, finally having their kiss in relief of the destruction being over with. Lois tells Clark that it's all downhill after the first kiss, but Clark states that it only counts if you're kissing a human. Superman then notices something, and flies down to see Zod on his knees, mourning the Krypton he knew, blaming its death on Clark choosing humanity over Krypton. Zod then explains to Clark that he only exists to protect Krypton, but now his people are no more, something that Superman has taken from him. Enraged, Zod charges at Clark, declaring that he will make humanity suffer, and that in the end, he will make them kneel before Zod. Superman declares Zod a monster, and so finally decides to fight him head on. Throughout all of Metropolis, Superman and Zod continue to fight, allowing Zod to adapt to his new powers and learn how to use his heat vision. Throughout the fight, the collateral damage is great, with buildings around them suffering in the process, as well as possibly many innocent people dying during the fight. Zod declares that there's only one way the fight will end. Either he dies or Zod does. Midway through the fight, Zod claims that he was bred to be a warrior and trained for years to master his senses, removing his armor and embracing the new powers he's attained. The climactic battle continues in midair through Metropolis and space until they crash into a train station, which Jimmy Olsen and his wife Lucy Lane are at in order to visit relatives outside of Metropolis, much to Clark's surprise. Superman tries to hold Zod back, but Zod then states that if Superman loves these people so much, he can mourn for them. Zod then unleashes his heat vision, getting it closer to Jimmy and Lucy, who are screaming in fear as Lois comes down to see the horrific sight of Jimmy and her sister Lucy in danger. Superman pleads with Zod to stop, to which Zod responds never. In the blink of an eye, Superman makes the heartbreaking decision to break Zod's neck and kill him. Lois, Jimmy, and Lucy look on, saddened for Superman, as he had to make the most difficult decision of his life. Superman screams in distress, ashamed at what he's just done. Lois comes down hugging her sister in comfort, and then hugs Superman, comforting him to let him know that he wasn't given a fair choice. Possibly a day later, General Swanwick is driving through the desert with his captain, only to be surprised as a surveillance drone drops in front of him, with Superman appearing, revealing that he did it. After complaining about the drone's cost, Superman tells Swanwick he won't let them find out where he hangs his cape. Superman declares that he's here to help, but it has to be on his terms. Superman then tells Swanwick that he has to convince Washington, but Swanwick asks what makes Superman and think they'll listen. with Superman stating to Swanwick that he'll just have to trust him. After Superman leaves, Swanwick's captain hilariously expresses her attraction to Superman. Clark then meets with his mother Martha at the Smallville cemetery, visiting his father's grave. We then see a flashback of Clark as a little boy playing superhero, with his father watching him, seemingly knowing that being a hero was his future. Back in the present, Clark tells Martha that he'll have to look for a job so he can blend in and keep his ear to the ground, and learn as much information on current dangers as he can to continue his job as a superhero. Back at the Daily Planet, Perry White introduces a new employee to Lois and Jimmy, a man named Clark Kent, with Jimmy and Lois happily welcoming Clark to the Daily Planet, seemingly knowing exactly. In a post-credit scene of the movie, we go back to days earlier when Zod made his announcement to the world. We see a dark cave filled with bats, only to then hear Zod's announcement. We then see a wide computer screen with Zod's message being displayed, as the silhouette of a familiar person with pointed ears and a dark black cape is watching it. The person then turns around, allowing us to see nothing but the symbol of the Batman on the person's chest. Fade to black. It's a cloudy morning. Bruce Wayne, played by Ben Affleck, wakes up and begins to look out his window. Alfred, played by Jeremy Irons, asks Bruce if he had another nightmare, as he seems to suffer from them frequently since his parents' death. Bruce confirms that it's nothing new and asks Alfred to confirm his meeting, to which Alfred obliges. Before leaving, Alfred expresses his wonder as to what his nightmare could have been about. Bruce then says to himself that it's less a nightmare and more of a memory. We then go back 19 years earlier to Gotham, 1994. A 26-year-old Bruce Wayne has been Batman for over a year, and Gotham's criminals fear the Dark Knight. However, Bruce faces a dilemma, as his personality as Bruce Wayne is truly a playboy philanthropist, making him an immature businessman who focuses on partying as a coping mechanism for witnessing his parents' deaths. This makes Bruce Wayne considered to being ousted by the shareholders of Wayne Enterprises, with the only one going to bat for him being Lucius Fox. What they all don't know, however, is that while Bruce can't take anything seriously during the day, Bruce Wayne takes his secret job as Batman as seriously as it can be at night. Meanwhile, Bruce Wayne returns to Wayne Manor, with Alfred telling Bruce that it may be finally time to start taking life seriously instead of just his nighttime activities. But Bruce argues that his nighttime activities are what make life in Gotham worth living anymore, claiming that this city is dying and he is the cure. Meanwhile, Bruce is watching the news as a string of robberies have been happening all around Gotham, with the guards being found dead with evidence pointing to the Falcone crime family. This would catch Bruce's attention, leading him to patrol Gotham that night as Batman. Meanwhile, a woman, alone in a building for sex workers and also played by Carla Gugino, watches on her TV. News and sightings of the Batman begin to spread, catching the woman's attention as she has a thing for dark bad boys. The news then turns to a diamond being displayed at the Gotham Merchants Bank, catching the woman's attention. Bruce ultimately finds his way to Gotham Merchants Bank, finding its window open, but its alarm inactive. As Batman sneaks into the bank to investigate, he comes to find that the guards are nowhere to be found, and so continues sneaking around, eventually seeing a feline-esque woman crawling down from the walls and cutting a circle into a glass case holding the shiny diamond with that was on the news, and with the engraving of Bertinelli written on the case. Before this Catwoman, again portrayed by Carla Gugino, could escape, Batman attacked, questioning Catwoman on the whereabouts of the guards. However, the Catwoman feigns ignorance, but follows up with flirtatious banter, finding herself attracted to Batman at first sight. But things would be abruptly cut short by the appearance of a steel can releasing a sort of gas from it. Batman would quickly grab Catwoman and escape the bank, but fail to capture the people responsible. Moments later in the bank, Batman meets up with Commissioner Gordon, portrayed by J.K. Simmons. who discovers the bodies of the guards, but instead of bullet wounds, they come to find them piled up in the janitor's closet with the scariest grins on their faces, as if they died laughing. Batman would, however, discover a card on the floor, one of a Joker playing card. On the back of the card it read, "If found, return to JOW." Promising to keep in touch with Gordon, Batman took his leave and returned to none other than the Batcave. At the Batcave, Bruce and Alfred would check to see if any DNA could be traced to it. Sadly, no trace of any known citizen of Gotham could match the fingerprints on the card. However, Alfred would remind Bruce to research the census for Gotham, only for him to find that the number of people at Arkham Asylum is surprisingly small. Bruce would then research the records of all the patients that were cleared to be let go within the past few months. Alfred would then check to see any current records on the people, only for many of the few let go these past months to have never been heard from again. No doctor's appointments, no traffic tickets, no receipts, nothing to prove that they've been on the grid since their release from Arkham Asylum. This brings them to the conclusion that the people may not have left Arkham Asylum at all, leaving Bruce to investigate that very night. Batman would find his way to Arkham Asylum, sneaking past the guards and even witnessing a few of the prisoners in their cells, such as Victor Saz, Calendar Man, Mad Hatter, and even Psycho Pirate. Batman would come to find a secret entrance that led into the underground of Arkham Asylum. Batman would also come to find a large room with many security guards that work at Arkham Asylum in it, including the head of security, Lyle Bolton, who's been given the nickname Lockup. From atop the ceiling, Batman would see a bald scientist entering the room that goes by the name of Hugo Strange, played by Andy Serkis. Hugo announces to bring in the next test subject, only for the patient to be a man named Waylon Jones, born with a strange skin condition to be brought in on a stretcher against his will. Hugo emphasizes that he wishes to turn Waylon's curse into a gift, but to do that, he needs him to test out a new serum he's created from crocodile DNA. Before Hugo could inject Waylon, Batman acts, taking down each security guard along the way, including Lockup. However, it would be too late, as Hugo would inject Waylon before Batman could reach him. This would lead Waylon to transform and become the infamous Killer Croc, something Batman would have to strategize in taking down. Seeing that Killer Croc is a mindless monster, in a small way at least, Batman would trick him into knocking himself into a wall, and then electrocute him until he was knocked out with his bat taser. Batman interrogates Hugo, but Hugo rambles on about perfection and how the people at Star Labs used to call him a quack before he left. But he'll show them. Batman knocks Hugo out, realizing he could never get answers from a madman. Batman then finds a file cabinet and discovers files on former patients Hugo experimented on. One man being a man that identifies as Jack Oswald White, aka JOW. Before Batman leaves, an unhinged and hysterical voice plays over the Arkham Asylum intercom, claiming that he's been expecting little Batsy, and that it's time to play tag. An alarm rings out, signaling that all the prisoners in Arkham Asylum have been released, some being a few people Batman helped put away the past year. Batman struggles to escape before the police arrive, but is then shocked to see another familiar can smashing through the window, releasing more of the gas that he and Catwoman escaped from earlier. Batman would witness the horrific sight of prisoners laughing themselves to death. Batman then escapes, a bit stricken with grief for the prisoners that he just couldn't save. Back at Gotham PD, Batman meets up with Gordon at the rooftop, telling Gordon what had happened at Arkham Asylum. Gordon warns Batman to be careful, as the police blame him for the deaths of many inmates and security guards. However, Gordon confirms that Killer Croc, Hugo, and a few of the other prisoners who were smart enough to stay in their cells are still alive, as they weren't anywhere close to the upper levels or the main hall where the can was thrown. Gordon was also able to look over Hugo's files on a Jack Oswald White, nicknamed Joker for his comedic personality, and confirms that he was one of Batman's first criminals known as the Hood. This revelation stuns Batman as he explains through a flashback that he was one of the first criminals he ever came across, and did so within the Ace chemical or processing plant, but would sadly scare him enough to fall into a vat of chemicals. Batman claims that it was the first life he failed to save, but is a bit more relieved to know that Jack didn't die. However, Gordon would also reveal that the file states that Jack was found on the street and taken into Arkham Asylum under the alias of a John Doe. Apparently, Hugo had been experimenting on Jack due to his survival of the chemicals, but Jack would oddly find himself enjoying the experiments, much to Hugo's distaste over time. When Jack was deemed a failure, he staged a massive breakout out in Arkham, said to be one of the most famous in many years. Batman and asked Gordon for certain confirmation that at the breakout happened on the specific date, to which Gordon does confirm due to police records, stating that many inmates died more than and they were arrested during during that time. Batman would regroup with Alfred at the Batcave, only to put the two and two together, revealing that the day of the breakout was also when and his parents' murderer escaped from Arkham Asylum, as the courts claimed that he was insane due to a mental condition. With the knowledge of the date, Bruce feels that he can finally find and face the man who killed his parents, but Alfred discourages this, stating that what Bruce needs to focus on isn't vengeance, but clarity and solemnity, and focus on finding Jack. However, Bruce reveals that he's always promised never to kill anyone except for the man who murdered his parents, stating that he finds it hard to even remember what the man even looks like, but only remembers the name from the arrest, making it clear where Bruce's mind is. However, Bruce does also know that the threat that the Joker poses on Gotham, wondering what his end goal is in all this. Gotham Bank and now Arkham Asylum? Just what does the Joker want, Batman thought. Suddenly, on the very rooftop Batman is standing on, Catwoman appears, feeling that she would find Batman on a random building in Gotham. Batman tries to fight her and bring her to the police, but during the flirtatious battle, Catwoman gives him a tip on why the Joker went for the bank, explaining that the bank was originally owned by the Bertinelli family, but after what's known as the Bertinelli massacre, the Galante family took control, but evidence on the scene before Batman left pointed to the Falcone family. With Catwoman's explanation, Batman comes to the conclusion that this Joker wants to start a crime war in Gotham, enough to spread chaos throughout the city, but the question is why. Catwoman then explains that during her regular job, she overheard a member of the Sabo crime family that they were sending out demolition crews throughout the city. For what, she has yet to find out. Batman thanks her for the information, but makes it clear that he can't just let her go. But Catwoman is slick, as she agrees to help him for the time being in order to stall her sentence. Batman, however, refuses her help, leading Catwoman to then use a makeshift smoke bomb to escape, succeeding in getting away from Batman. That night, Batman then sneaks into the Sabo crime family home, ready to interrogate Yano Sabo, the boss of the Sabo crime family. With effective methods, Janos reveals that they were hired by the Clown, and that his hideout is at the old Monarch Theater that was abandoned, the very theater that Bruce's parents were killed at. Meanwhile, within the Monarch Theater, the goons and henchmen who work for the Joker are seen collaborating with each other. Just then, the Batman arrives and defeats everyone in a fight scene similar to Batman's fight scene in Batman v Superman against Lex Luthor's men. Batman would then find the main office where the Joker would be, only to be greeted by a dead man with a tape recorder in his hands. Batman plays the tape recorder to hear Joker's voice, confirming that the man in front of him is named Joe Chill, the man arrested for the deaths of Thomas and Martha Wayne. Batman's biggest fears have come to light. The Joker knows Batman's true identity. However, the recording has the Joker confirm that he has no intention of revealing his identity to Gotham, as the game is too much fun to end it so soon. Knockout gas then releases from the tape recorder, actually outsmarting Batman for once. Moments later, Batman wakes up tied to a chair and surrounded by the dead bodies of the henchmen he just defeated, dead with the unnatural grins on their faces. We then hear the menacing laugh of none other than the Joker, played brilliantly by Jared Leto. A spotlight shines on the Joker, with his remaining henchmen at the bottom of the stage. Joker dances all the way to Batman, finally revealing his face. The Joker makes witty but sadistic puns, even using the dead henchmen as puppets for fun. Batman tries to get at what he can out of Joker through using manipulation tactics, but Joker's unpredictable nature make it difficult. With the Joker simply stating that why should he ruin the fun when the fun's in the mystery. Batman asks Joker why he's trying to start an all-out war with the crime families across Gotham, but Joker simply states that he doesn't want to give spoilers before the dramatic ending. Meanwhile, Catwoman sneaks into the Joker's hideout, taking out the guards silently one by one. Batman, in the meantime, tries to keep the Joker's attention, even trying to strike a nerve as to being responsible for the damage done to his body and mind. To Batman's shock, however, Joker thanks Batman and states that he was his saving grace that day, carving his path to becoming the greatest Joker in the world. Joker then decides that he can at least give Batman a little hint to his reasoning for starting a war. His hint is a joke, a bunch of criminals, and a sad twist of fate. In the end, Catwoman would finally strike, being able to save Batman, but the Joker had rigged charges all over the building. Joker and his goons would escape, with Batman and Catwoman escaping their own way. The building would ultimately blow up, with Batman and Catwoman witnessing Joker's fireworks. After the two regroup at a rooftop, Batman then tries to take his leave and try to discover Joker's plan, but Catwoman tries to stop him. Despite Batman's reluctance to trust Catwoman, she genuinely cares for him and even admits this to him. Batman questions her reasoning though, to which Catwoman reveals her identity to Batman as Selina Kyle, a girl who's been tossed around and manipulated by Gotham's underworld since childhood. But then when the Batman arrived, things began to change. She, however, makes it clear that he's still limiting himself to his own sense of justice, as unlike Batman, she wouldn't hesitate to go for the kill. Batman, however, states that the only one he was ready to kill was his parents' murderer, and Joker beat him to the punch, sort of giving her a little bit of insight to himself. Selina then states that with his vengeance out of the way, he's got nothing holding him back anymore, and asks him to just run away with her and claim all the riches of the world. Batman obviously refuses, but there is some reluctance in his words. Batman then takes his leave, with Selina slightly broken-hearted, shedding a tear. Back at the Batcave, Bruce arrives to find Lucius Fox, played by Giancarlo Esposito, and Alfred working together to analyze the substance that Joker's been using to kill people. Lucius tries to bring the state of Wayne Enterprises to Bruce's attention, but Bruce is too focused on the Joker to care. Lucius then tells Bruce that Alfred's filled him in on everything since he's on the comms 24/7, but gives Bruce a stern talking to about being in the present and living for the future, not living in the past. Lucius then takes his leave to tend to more business. In order to cut the tension, Alfred explains that they're close to creating an antidote and confirm that the gas was created from the same chemicals as the ones Joker fell into back at the chemical plant, but that has been reconfigured into a gas form and experimented with in order to manipulate the laughter into literally suffocating a person to death. Bruce discusses with Alfred on what he should do with the clues the Joker gave him, with Alfred telling Bruce that it's more likely a trap. Bruce agrees but still needs answers, and so Alfred advises seeing Gordon. Bruce then takes his leave in order to meet with Gordon, not knowing that Wayne Manor is being watched by a familiar green-haired person. Back at Gotham PD, police begin to talk about Batman in a negative light, blaming him for the deaths of so many, but Gordon stands up for Batman and berates the men for disacknowledging the Joker as if he didn't exist. Gordon states that all Gotham has wanted is to create a reason to get rid of Batman because the police don't want to finally admit that during Gotham's dark age of crime, they couldn't do the job Batman has done for them 10 times over. While some police look upon Gordon in slight scorn, a few others look upon him with respect, including a nearby Crispus Allen played by Kobna Holdbrook-Smith. Gordon meets with Batman, who tells Gordon of the clues Joker gave him and when he met him, only for the urges to make Gordon think of a familiar case and leads him to pull up a file from his office. Gordon returns to the rooftop with a file that talked about the death of a pregnant woman due to an accident, and that her husband was a failed stand-up comedian who was said to be tied to the Sabo family. One part of the file says that during an interrogation of one of the Sabo family, they admitted to using a nobody comedian as a scapegoat for a heist at the Ace chemical processing plant. Putting two and two together, Batman finally discovers the reason of Joker's plan. He wanted to get revenge of the family that betrayed him and used him as a scapegoat. Batman then asks Gordon to get any records of any demolition projects in Gotham. Batman then radios Alfred, telling him that the Joker's plan is to bring the crime families out in the open and kill them all with a city-wide spread of his Joker venom. Gordon then returns to Batman, telling him the locations of unauthorized demolition in multiple areas in Gotham, with Batman advising him to send all units out to find them, to which Gordon agrees. Meanwhile, Catwoman sees Batman and head back to Wayne Manor at this time on the infamous Batmobile. On the way back to Wayne Manor, Batman radios Lucius, telling him to try and create a signal blocker to the detonators, which Lucius would get on right away. Back at Wayne Manor, Alfred would find that intruders have entered the manor, leading Batman to get back as fast as he could. In a spooky scene, Batman silently takes down Joker's goons one by one until he would find the right time to use hand-to-hand combat on them, eating every single one of them. Batman comes to find Joker in the main hall of Wayne Manor, waiting for Batman. Batman tries to appeal to Joker's sensitive side, bringing up his wife and unborn child. At first, Joker seems genuinely upset, revealing that he and his pregnant wife were struggling to make ends meet during the dark ages of Gotham, and so made a deal with the Sabo family to pull off a job, one which he couldn't back out of once he accepted. However, Joker came to find out that his wife died in a car accident, and not being able to escape the deal, he agreed to be the Hood, a makeshift villain, in while Sabo's goons got what they needed for Hugo's earlier experiments, who was the one who actually hired them. Just then, however, the Joker begins to laugh, revealing that he truly no longer cares about that stuff, and only about Bruce being Batman, as he finds him to be he's simply too much fun in his eyes and doesn't want to let him go. Joker then and follows up by saying desperate people will do desperate things, and that what Batman just tried to do was hilarious. However, Joker feels that for the Batman to be his perfect self, he needs to let go of the ties that bind him, and so throws a Molotov cocktail at some nearby curtains, beginning to set the manor ablaze. Meanwhile, Gotham PD ends up having shootouts all over Gotham, with the crime families and criminals guarding the Joker venom bombs at the demolition sites. Back at Wayne Manor, Batman and Joker's fight would be an incredible, slightly comedic but serious battle. However, more of Joker's goons would show up to nearly beat Batman down, as he's finding it hard to breathe in all of the smoke due to the growing flames. However, Catwoman comes in to save Batman's life, continuing his fight with Joker while Catwoman deals with the grunts. At the construction site, where Gordon is, he succeeds in getting through with a bomb squad, but doesn't know if the other bombs are secure. Meanwhile, at Wayne Enterprises, and as the timers on the bombs nearly hit zero, Lucius successfully he creates a signal jammer, keeping the timers from hitting zero and giving the bomb squads a chance to disarm the explosives all over Gotham. Back at Wayne Manor, Batman successfully defeats the Joker. However, the Joker then takes off his signature flower on his suit and sprays his own face with the water in it, causing the paint on his face to drip down and nearly come off. The Joker would then take his hand and wipe the paint off half of his face. Suddenly, Batman would then recognize the face of the Joker, as a flashback reveals he is the true gunman that killed Martha and Thomas Wayne. The trauma of it just caused Bruce to block it out. The Joker then simply repeats, "Desperate people do desperate things." Joker then reveals to Batman that Joe Chill was just a scapegoat that he framed thanks to his Sabo family connections in order to protect himself and to protect keep his wife from ever finding out about what he did. He of course tells Batman that the reason he didn't kill him was because he couldn't bring himself to kill a child. This was due to Joker's humanity back then. And however, Joker now believes that at destiny kept Bruce alive that day. Joker then eggs Batman on to kill him, but Catwoman, out of all people, stops him. Catwoman then points out a TV playing at the corner of the main hall, with the news confirming that the bombs have been disarmed, and Gordon giving the credit to Gotham's Dark Knight, known as Batman. Catwoman then agrees that Batman is not just a symbol of fear, but of hope for Gotham, and that taking a life will take that hope away. Joker tries to dissuade Batman, using the cruelest words he can, but Batman refuses, simply picking up Joker by the collar. Moments later, Batman would bring the Joker tied up at the front of Arkham Asylum, ending Joker's terror, at least for today, as the Joker begins to laugh. Days later, Gotham PD would announce and debut the Bat Signal, a way for contacting Batman should they ever need him, as they see him now as the symbol for Gotham's hope in the night. Bruce then returns to Wayne Enterprises and starts to take his business seriously, finding a way to ensure him staying on even with the shareholders' disapproval. That night, Batman would meet with Catwoman again, whose offer still stands. However, Bruce claimed that the world needs Batman. Before leaving, Catwoman made sure to remind Bruce that there's more to life than just vengeance, and makes the night memorable with a kiss. That very night, Batman looks up to see the bat signal in the sky, causing him to act. But then the scene transitions back to present day, with Bruce telling himself that he wished that Selina was right, hinting toward Bruce returning to his hateful demeanor as Batman. Alfred then tells Bruce that the car is ready to take him to his meeting, to which he obliges by getting in the car and leaving Gotham. A post-credit scene would show a woman bringing a tablet into an office, telling her boss that a type of mineral has been found at the bottom of the Indian Ocean. The woman would then ask the person what they should do, addressing her boss as Mr. Luthor, portrayed by the great Vincent D'Onofrio. Luthor then tells Miss Tessmacher to send an excavation team, and that something tells him that this is what humanity is going to need the most for when the time comes. The story begins with the funeral of Martha and Thomas Wayne, the parents of Bruce Wayne, who is just a little kid at this point. Bruce runs away from Alfred, distraught at losing his parents, not being able to take the grief. We then get a flashback of Bruce, Thomas, and Martha leaving the theater together, seemingly happy. Back in the present, Bruce continues to run through the woods, with the flashback returning to the moment Bruce and his parents were held up at gunpoint by none other than Jack Oswald White, who would one day be known as the Joker, the Clown Prince of Crime. As Bruce continues running through the woods, the flashback then shows Thomas Wayne attempting to save his wife and son, only for Jack to fire on the instinct of fear. Bruce in the present then falls into a boarded up hole, with the flashback then showing Martha attempting to defend Bruce from the gunman, only for Jack to pull the trigger by accident due to the struggle. As Bruce in the present falls to the bottom of the cave, the flashback shows Bruce yelling in sorrow at the death of his mother, with Jack running with an expression of sorrow and fear at what he had done. Thomas Wayne would reach out to his wife, uttering his last words, "Martha," as the life from her eyes die out, and pieces of her pearl necklace fall into the sewer. Back in the present, Bruce awakens to find a cave filled with countless bats. The bats then react to Bruce's presence and circle around him, seemingly lifting him up back to the surface, through the hole he fell through. It was from then on Bruce knew what he had to be: fear itself. Many years later, during the invasion of General Zod, Bruce Wayne would go to Metropolis and contact a man, coincidentally named Jack, to evacuate the building he's in. Meanwhile, Bruce is driving amongst the chaos, debris falling everywhere as he drives to the building his colleagues remain in until Bruce encounters a crowd of people. Bruce exits the car, witnessing the actions of the destruction of the World Engine as the ship Lois and company were on go straight into it, causing an implosion. Meanwhile, Superman and Zod's battle enter the building Bruce's colleague Jack is in. Bruce turns a corner, trying to contact Jack, but witnesses Zod's heat vision destroy the building. Jack then begins to pray as the building comes down on him, killing him in the process. Bruce attempts to run toward the building, despite its destruction. As Bruce roams through the smoke of the building's collapse, he witnesses the casualties of Superman's battle with Zod, encountering an employee of his named Wallace, whose legs have been permanently shattered by fallen debris. Bruce and others help Wallace, but then Bruce acts to save a little girl from more falling debris. Bruce then asks the girl where her mother is, to which the girl just points at the building Zod just destroyed. As Bruce embraces the little girl to comfort her, he then sees Superman and Zod falling toward the train station, with nothing but hatred for Superman in his eyes, forever blaming Superman for the almost imminent destruction of Metropolis. 18 months later, a group of divers in the Indian Ocean and dive down to pull out a kind of rock, or meteorite of some sort. The divers bring the rock to a seemingly American man, who then breaks the rock, revealing a kind of green crystal inside of it. Meanwhile, in Nairobi, Africa, Lois Lane meets up with a photographer named Steve Lombard, being there to meet a man named Amajog. Lois and Steve are then transported, taken blindfolded to a secret location where Amajog will meet them, who's accompanied by a man named Anatoly Kinyazev, codenamed KG Beast. Lois interviews Amajog, but KG Beast then decides to break apart Steve's camera due to his suspicion of him, which proves correct due to him finding a tracer in the camera, with KG Beast revealing to Amajog that it's a CIA device and that they're tracking them. Lois pleads her and Steve's innocence to Amajog, but Steve Lombard reveals that he simply used Lois's credentials as a cover. Steve then tells Amajog that he's been authorized to propose an arrangement, but Amajog then shoots Steve dead, not wanting any arrangement. CIA then orders a team they've set up in Africa to stand down while a drone attempts to attack, but the team deny to follow the orders due to civilian casualties. Lois continues to plead her innocence to Amajog. However, KG Beast then looks around as if he's expecting something. He then kills all of Amajog's men, catching Amajog's attention. Believing this to be a rescue, Amajog takes Lois hostage, with KG Beast and his men destroying the army's weapons and mysteriously burning the bodies for some reason. KG Beast and his team then leave to escape, saying to hurry and stating that someone's coming. Meanwhile, the CIA launches their drone strike, ready to kill their enemy despite the casualties. Suddenly, a mysterious figure destroys the missile the drone launched and the drone alongside it, leaving KG Beast with a smile as he escapes. Just then, Superman arrives with Amajog using Lois as a hostage. However, Amajog underestimates Superman's speed, as Superman swiftly grabs Amajog through the wall behind Lois, seemingly beating him without killing him, as is Superman's MO. The team sent by the CIA then enters the village, only to find the burnt bodies of the people that KGB East and his men killed, with Lois alive and well. Back in the U.S., a woman from the village describes the scene of what happened to a woman named Senator Finch, stating that Superman killed the people in her village, seemingly lying in order to turn the world against Superman. Finch states that the committee holds Superman responsible for what happened at the village, with the pleading woman stating that Superman answers to no one, not even in God. Meanwhile, in Gotham City, as two officers are watching a football game, they get a report about a disturbance at a lone house. The officers investigate, where they find a batarang stabbed into the wall. The officers enter the basement only to find a cage filled with women, revealing them to be victims of human trafficking. The officers try to let the girls out, but they refuse to come out due to their fear of Batman, as he's still dealing with the remaining traffickers. The officers hear the yell of a trafficker and so head back upstairs, hearing more yells from those being attacked by Batman. Just then, the officer finds the only trafficker left chained up to the heater. The officer then turns around to see Batman hanging from the ceiling, shooting him out of instinctual fear, leading Batman to escape. The officer's partner arrives and both look at the trafficker, noticing that he has a brand in the shape of a bat symbol, seemingly knowing what that means. Lois returns to her apartment and tidies up, But when she finds a shirt with blood on it, she begins to feel worried for Clark. Lois then grabs a book she found on presumably Steve's body and pulls out what appears to be some sort of bullet. Moments later, Lois is in the bathtub and Clark arrives, with Lois talking to Clark about being blamed for what happened, with Clark not caring what people think as long as Lois is safe and he stays true to who he is. All the while, Lois wants to understand what truly happened back in Africa. Meanwhile, Bruce returns to the Batcave, with Alfred working on Batman's mask. Bruce and Alfred then discuss KG Beast, as well as discuss Batman's new morally corrupt sense of justice and Superman. Alfred making it clear that the world has changed because of Superman's existence. At a company called LexCorp, Senator Finch meets with Lex Luthor, played by Vincent D'Onofrio, accompanied by Eve Tessmacher, his secretary, and Otis, his intern. Luthor presents the green mineral that was once a piece of the world engine over the Indian Ocean. Otis would then turn on a monitor, revealing that the government is in possession of the body of General Zod, as well as explain the mineral itself and reveal that it possesses the ability to break Kryptonian skin. Luthor then reveals the sample he found in the Indian Ocean and requests Finch to give him an import license to bring it to LexCorp. Finch questions the idea of weaponizing what would later be known as kryptonite, to which X would explain in a convincing monologue that he wishes to protect humanity from false gods, revealing what many call the metahuman thesis, a thesis that supports the existence of other superpowered beings. Lex then goes on a small rant about how humanity has relied too much on Superman, to which it's become unprepared should he ever turn against the world, and so makes his case as to using kryptonite against any more Kryptonian invaders instead of relying on any other metahumans. Reluctantly, Finch seems to agree, but in exchange, Lex wishes to have unbridled access to the Kryptonian ship and Zod's body for testing. It's shown in slight flash forwards that Lex Luthor used kryptonite to cut a fingerprint from Zod's body so he can access the ship, as well as later enter the site where the ship is being kept. Back at Lois and Clark's apartment, Clark sees an interview with the pleading woman, making Superman look more like the villain every day. Meanwhile, Wallace, from the Metropolis incident, is shown with articles all about Superman and in his home, as well as places a photo of his wife and daughter in front of a memorial listing. He then decides to climb and vandalize a newly made statue of Superman, commemorating his fight against the invading Kryptonians. At the Daily Planet, everyone sees the news report of Wallace getting arrested for vandalizing Superman's statue, branding Superman a false god, as is written on the statue's chest. This news report making everyone, including Clark, Lois, and Jimmy, petrified. Moments later, Clark heads over to Gotham in order to meet with the pleading woman and interview her about Superman. While he gains no knowledge on the pleading woman's whereabouts, he speaks to someone who warns him about the Batman, who's been marking people in order for them to be killed in Gotham Prison. Meanwhile, Bruce is attending an underground street fight where KG Beast is attending. Bruce then speaks to KG Beast, with KG unaware that Bruce is hacking his phone with his own phone. Back at the Daily Planet, Clark tries to convince Perry to run a story about how Gotham's Batman is treating crime, but Perry shrugs it off as a boring story due to Gotham's common reputation of crime being on the daily. Lois then enters the room and presents the bullet she found to Perry, claiming it to be supplied to the enemy to the rebels by the government themselves, giving Lois a chance to chase the story by going to Washington, D.C. Perry then tells Clark to be at a benefit for the library in Metropolis, revealing that someone on the committee requested Clark Kent specifically. Meanwhile, Finch meets with Lex Luthor at his house to tell him that she's denying the import license to bring the kryptonite to LexCorp, as she doesn't like the idea of weaponizing it, as well as have suspicions about Lex's intentions with it. Lex then points out to a painting on his father's mantle, one depicting angels coming from the sky and demons coming from beneath the earth, revealing that it should be the other way around, that devils come from the sky. Back at the Wayne estate, Bruce visits his parents' graves, only to then be haunted by an image of blood coming from their mausoleum, only followed what looks like an image of Man-Bat to appear before him and try to bite his neck. However, Bruce wakes up to find that it was all a dream, or perhaps a premonition. The next day, Bruce reveals to Alfred that what he found on KG Beast's phone was proof to a connection with Lex Luthor. Alfred then presents Bruce with an invitation to Lex Luthor's house, who is revealed to be the proprietor at the gala for the Library of Metropolis. Moments later, Bruce looks at his suit, showing eyes of hatred at it. Bruce then approaches what looks to be the suit of the late Robin, with the Joker's laughter echoing in the background. Robin's suit is spray painted with the following: "Ha ha ha! Joke's on you, Batman." Bruce then attends the gala, where Clark Kent would take notice. Miss Tessmacher then presents Lex Luthor at the gala. Meanwhile, Bruce spots a particular-looking woman in a dark red dress. Bruce then talks to Alfred via comlink and tries to find his way downstairs into the server room. Bruce has little choice but to return to the party, where he would end up meeting Clark Kent. Both Clark and Bruce share conflicting opinions about Superman and Batman, to which Lex Luthor interrupts. Meanwhile, the data transfer of Lex's data from his servers is complete, to which Bruce would attempt to get it back. However, Bruce would come to find that the device he used to steal the data had been stolen from the Lady in Red. Bruce would give chase, but would be too late as she left in a car. Meanwhile, Clark sees a report about a fire, to which he acts with haste. Moments later, Superman saves a little girl from the fire, to which people around him, who seem to be celebrating Day of the Dead, treat him like a god as they place their hands on him simultaneously. As Superman continues aiding the world in terms of natural disasters, the world begins to question his existence, what he stands for, and what he should be doing. The world is beginning to act as Jonathan Kent expected, as people with no understanding of Clark and what his existence represents. While Clark confides in his mother about his predicament, Lois gets the bullets examined, revealing that the metal isn't known, and theorizes that the rebels in Africa could have been used as test subjects for the bullets. Clark would then research about the bat brands, finding out that whoever has the brand is killed by the inmate. It's in the prisons the criminals with the brands end up in. Meanwhile, the trafficker with the bat brand is brought into Metropolis prison, while Wallace is set free thanks to the influence of Lex Luthor, who approaches him with a proposition. The next day, Wallace meets with Senator Finch, wanting to share his story. Back at Metropolis prison, the trafficker ultimately gets killed for having the bat brand, just like he feared. Lois then goes to General Swanwick, who sadly believes that while Superman might not have killed someone, is directly responsible for what happened in Africa and blames Lois as well. Perry then confronts Clark on chasing the Batman story and tells him to drop it. Meanwhile, at a fancy event, Bruce confronts the woman in red from Lex's gala. The woman reveals that Lex has a photo that belongs to her, which is why she stole Bruce's device. Despite their tension, there is a bit of charm in their conversation. Back at the Batcave, Bruce begins decrypting the data, which is showing that it's going to take a long while before it's done. Meanwhile, in some distant future, a post-apocalyptic Batman is seen exiting a bunker and looks on to witness an Omega symbol on the distant ground in front of a destroyed city. Whether it's Gotham or Metropolis, it doesn't seem to matter. Batman then notices an armored school bus in the distance, with armed gunners inside. Batman then meets up with the survivors, only to reveal that they have kryptonite. However, Batman would then open the crate to reveal that there is nothing in it, and that it was a trap set up by the gunners in order to survive. Just then, soldiers brandishing the Superman symbol like a police officer patch reveal themselves, holding Batman at gunpoint. The soldiers then kill the survivors, leading Batman to act. After the fight, groups of demonic bug-like soldiers appear to aid the Superman soldiers and capture Batman. Moments later, Batman would be imprisoned in a bunker, and Superman would appear, with the Superman soldiers bowing to him. Superman then approaches Batman, kills the remaining survivors, and unmasks him, stating that she, seemingly Lois, was his world and that Bruce took her from him. Superman then pushes his hand into Batman, seemingly killing him. However, Bruce would wake up, but witness the appearance of a young man in reddish armor, surrounded by a portal of lightning and energy, stating that Lois is the key, but asks if he's too early. The last thing the person in red says is that Bruce has to fear Superman and find them. Bruce wakes up for real this time, finding that the data is finally decrypted. Meanwhile, Clark begins investigating Batman's latest victim, the trafficker who was killed. Bruce then discovers that the White Portuguese, a name that Bruce learned while investigating KG Beast, is the name of a ship. Bruce then tells Alfred that the ship is carrying none other than kryptonite, the only weapon that can kill Superman. Alfred tries to reason with Bruce to not use the kryptonite against Superman and convince him that Superman is not the enemy. But Bruce's fear gets the better of him, and Alfred it falls on deaf ears. Alfred then tells Bruce that Batman used to stand for something in Gotham as much as Superman stands for something in Metropolis, and that Selina believed that. However, Bruce retaliates by stating that she was wrong the moment he lost someone that meant more to him than she did. Not wanting to have any part in the death of Superman, Alfred refuses to help Bruce with this one, with Bruce stating that he'll do it on his own. Clark then goes to the prison in order to learn about the trafficker, whose name is Santos. Clark then meets his girlfriend, who doesn't condone his actions, but states that he was still a father who didn't deserve to die, revealing that Gotham and Metropolis prisons let the Batman decide who lives and who dies. Back at the Daily Planet, Perry tries to confront Clark, but Clark is nowhere to be found. At the docks of Metropolis or Gotham, I honestly don't know which, Batman makes his attempt to steal the kryptonite from KG Beast and his men. Batman places a tracer on the cargo truck in order to chase it down in his Batmobile. Just as Batman gets close to the cargo truck, Superman confronts and intercepts him, breaking his Batmobile in the process. The two look at each other face to face. Superman then warns Batman not to answer his bat signal anymore, and to bury the Batman. Batman then asks Superman if he bleeds, to which Superman just flies away in response. But then Batman states, "You will." Batman returns to the Batcave, where he then locates the cargo truck where they place the kryptonite, at, X-Corp Research Park. That night, Lois meets up with General Swanwick again, who decides to look into the origin of the bullet she found. Meanwhile, Senator Finch invites Superman to a council to discuss his supposed actions in the desert via news conference. Clark once again confides in his mother, who encourages Clark to be the beacon he was meant to be, to a world that he doesn't owe anything to. In the streets of Gotham, the pleading woman then notices KG Beast and his men at the front of her home, to which she decides to find Senator Finch and tell her the truth, which was that she was lying about Superman's involvement in what happened in Africa. Lois and Swanwick then meet up again, with Swanwick revealing that LexCorp developed the bullet, and reveals that it was a ploy to ambush Superman. Lois then realizes that she was the bait for him. Wallace is then interviewed by the news and tries to turn the public against Superman, convinced that the invasion was his fault. Meanwhile, Bruce is witnessing the event live on his television, and Lois is attempting to have Perry run the true story about Superman being framed. Back at City Hall, Finch gets ready for the meeting, but is intercepted by Lex Luthor. Bruce then finds out that Wallace hasn't been receiving victim checks, to which Bruce is given with writings to Bruce. Clark's mother also witnesses the event live on TV from the diner she works at. At a train station, the pleading woman is pushed into a moving train by KG Beast in order to get rid of any loose ends for Lex. Meanwhile, Lois arrives at City Hall, while Superman also arrives to quell the fears of the people. As the conference begins and Superman stands before the people, Finch stands against Superman's unconsented actions. However, Finch then notices that Lex's chair is vacant, not attending the council, making her realize that something's wrong. Just then, a bomb from Wallace's new wheelchair given to him by Lex Luthor goes off and kills almost everyone inside the building. As Bruce looks upon this event, Bruce then looks at a newspaper article about the invasion at Metropolis, with Wallace having seemingly written he let his family die. This also revealing that at the building that was destroyed in Metropolis was Wayne Towers. This event making Bruce believe that Superman is solely irresponsible for what just happened. As Lois enters the scene, Superman helps evacuate the survivors, but looks at the dead he failed to save. Superman then decides to fly off in despair. Alfred arrives at Bruce's penthouse, only to discover what happened at the Senate meeting. That night, Lex Luthor arrives at LexCorp, only to discover from security recording that Batman stole the kryptonite deposit and replaced it with Batarang, with him realizing that Batman is out to kill Superman. Superman then meets up with Lois, believing that Superman is just a dream on Earth, and that he is no symbol. But Lois tries to convince him otherwise, to sadly no avail. Meanwhile, Lex Luthor uses Zod's fingerprints to enter the Kryptonian ship's command center, as it's flooded with alien liquids. Lex then inserts the Kryptonian key into the console, allowing him to gain access to and full control of the Kryptonian ship. As Bruce is training and preparing the Kryptonite spear for his upcoming battle with Superman, Bruce discovers the kind of data Lex Luthor had stored in his servers. Bruce would find pictures and recordings of the woman in red, as well as an old picture of her from World War I, but as a warrior-looking woman wearing a type of tiara. Back at the Kryptonian ship, Lex brings in the body of General Zod, followed by Lex placing his own blood onto the body. Lex then has the computer meld his DNA with Zod's DNA, beginning the mutation of Zod's body into something that the Council of Krypton deems a deformity so hateful to sight and memory. Meanwhile, the world continues to find ways of blaming Superman for the incident at the Senate, with his supporters looking at the news in horror. Meanwhile, Bruce visits Wayne Manor, a place that was burned down by the Joker during their first ever battle. Alfred tries to convince Bruce not to go through with it, but Bruce believes that all that matters is to protect the future of the world from people like Superman. Back in Smallville, KG Beast kidnaps Clark's mother. Meanwhile in Gotham, Batman shines the bat signal, waiting for Superman as Batman is donning a new high-tech armor and has the kryptonite spear on standby. Lex Luthor then calls someone from the top of a helipad from LexCorp Tower, informing them that Batman has arrived. Meanwhile, KG Beast kidnaps Lois Lane, seemingly at the order of Lex Luthor. Lois is taken straight to Lex Luthor at the helipad. Lex asks Lois to forgive him as he's admired her and her fiery spirit for a good story for a long time. Lex then questions her about the discovery of the metal of the bullet she found, as well as tells her that her story about him will be like dust in the wind. Lex then explains how his path to Superman is the woman he loves, followed by one of Lex Luthor's men pushing Lois off the building. As Lois is falling, Superman arrives to save her and place her on the ground safely. Superman confronts Lex Luthor, only for Lex to reveal that he's captured his mother Martha Kent, which angers Superman. Lex then monologues about how Superman has made society weak, and that he realized that the suffering abuse of his father, that if God is all-powerful, he cannot be all good, and if he is all good, then he cannot be all-powerful. Lex goes on to explain to Superman that his presence has weakened humanity and doesn't want them relying on false gods to ease their suffering. Lex then gives Superman the ultimate ultimatum: fight Batman to the death in Gotham or his mother will die. Lex also reveals that he intercepted Wallace's X just to put Superman on Batman's radar, which also reveals that Lex Luthor knows that Batman is Bruce Wayne. Not having much choice, Superman goes to Gotham, but not to fight Batman, but to plead for his help. Meanwhile, KG Beast and his men guard Martha, and start a timer for how long Superman has to kill Batman. Lightning from the Kryptonian ship can also be seen from the Daily Planet, with the Warrior Woman also noticing on TV. Superman tells Lois he has to go to Gotham, and that no one is good in this world. Meanwhile, the Warrior Woman looks at her computer, finding that Bruce sent her the data he took from Luthor. The woman then looks at what Lex calls his metahuman research, and discovers the existence of a man with super speed, a man who can breathe underwater, and what appears to be a dead person being reconstructed into a cyborg. It was created by a strange cybernetic bot. Back at Gotham, Batman waits for Superman while Lois gets a chopper from Perry in order to get to Gotham. Superman arrives and tries to talk to Batman, but his words fall on deaf ears as Batman takes every measure to defeat and kill Superman. In the middle of the battle, Superman still tries to talk to Bruce, but then Batman shoots a kryptonite smoke grenade at him, weakening Superman. Batman then taunts Superman about feeling fear, followed by Batman continuing to beat down on Superman. As the battle rages, both Batman and Superman continue to get the upper hand on each other, until Batman decides to use more kryptonite gas in order to beat Superman. After throwing Superman down a flight of stairs, Batman drags Superman and then throws him through the columns of the building they're fighting in. Batman expresses how while Superman may have been told by his parents that he was special, Batman was taught by his parents that the world only makes sense if you force it to. Lois then arrives at Gotham to find Superman. As Batman has Superman at his mercy and holds the kryptonite spear, he claims that Superman was never a god and was never even a man. As Batman holds up the spear to kill Superman, Lois hits Batman's face with a pipe, causing him to back up. Lois stands ready to fight for Superman to the death. Batman warns Lois to get out of the way so he can kill this thing. However, Lois proudly states that his name is Clark Kent, a boy raised on a small farm in Smallville, Kansas, whose only crime is wanting to help those he knows will always fear him. Batman yells for Lois to shut up and move, but she just keeps repeating herself proudly, enraging Batman. As Bruce begins to lose himself in anger, he then has a flashback of a young boy named Dick Grayson, who's holding a fearful man at gunpoint. Suddenly, Batman appears in between him and Dick's target, attempting to convince Dick that vengeance isn't the same as justice. Dick does everything he can to convince Batman to move, even threatens to shoot him, as the man who's lying on the floor scared is the man who murdered his parents. But Batman speaks as Bruce for a moment, telling Dick that his parents would want him to live a life unconsumed by vengeance, untainted by bloodshed. Batman states that while it's too late for him to escape the dark, Dick still has a chance to become the heart of Gotham, something Batman admits that he himself can never be. In the end, Batman hugs Dick while the fearful man still trembles in fear. We then see flashes of Dick's training and eventual becoming of Robin, to which we then see them take on various criminals together. However, the ending flash forward shows a bloodied Robin with a flash of the Joker, played by Jared Leto, laughing. The flashes then end in the present, where Batman sees Lois as a reflection of himself trying to stop Robin from falling into the same path. Batman looks at the spear in hand, realizing what he has become, the very thing he swore never to become. This causes Batman to shed a tear. Angered at himself, Batman tosses the spear aside, returning to becoming the symbol of hope that Gotham hadn't had in a long time. Meanwhile, people converge around the Kryptonian ship site as it continues to generate lightning, while KG Beast and his men prepare themselves to kill Martha, as time is running out. Superman then relays everything to Batman, prompting the two to enter a truce and work together to stop Lex Luthor and save Superman's mother, Martha Kent. Batman promises that he'll save Martha, while Superman intends to let exit the Kryptonian ship. Alfred then informs Batman that KG Beast is in a warehouse near Gotham Port. Batman arrives via Batwing and attempts to deal with the groups of gunmen outside. Alfred then remotely controls the Batwing, letting Batman enter the warehouse, followed by Batman defeating the henchmen in what I describe as the best Batman fight scene in the world. As KG Beast and his last man prepare for Batman's attack, Batman goes through the wall and aims the last henchman's gun at KG Beast. But KG Beast holds a flamethrower at Martha, having the two of them reach an impasse. KG Beast warns Batman to drop the weapon, but Batman then decides to shoot the flamethrower's tank, instantly charging in order to cover Martha from the explosion. Meanwhile, Lois finds a place to hide the kryptonite spear where no one will find it. Lex then checks the timer, finding that Superman's time has run out, but is also disappointed to find that Superman had found a way out of the ultimatum as Superman arrives at the Kryptonian ship. Lex attempts to inform Superman of Martha's death, but finds that it's Batman on the other end of the line, confirming that his plan's just been thwarted. Lex admits that he's underestimated Superman, but he will not allow his existence to poison humanity's resolve any further. Superman claims that Lex is lost, but Lex states that he doesn't know how to lose. Lex then explains that he doesn't hate the sinner, only the sin, and that Superman's sin is existing. Lex Luthor then claims that if man cannot kill God, then the devil will do it. Just then, energy begins to radiate from a cocoon within the command center of the Kryptonian ship, formed from Zod's body and Luthor's DNA. Lex then presents none other than what he calls Superman's Doomsday. As Doomsday looks upon Luthor, he instantly attempts to kill him, but Superman stops Doomsday's fist. This intervention would lead to a battle between Superman and Doomsday, one that they would take to the city of Metropolis at Superman's statue. Doomsday then jumps to the top of LexCorp Tower after knocking Superman away. Just then, police converge, retrieving Martha as the Batwing leaves to help Superman stop Doomsday. Meanwhile, the Warrior Woman is packing to leave Metropolis by plane, only to see the news report of Doomsday attacking Metropolis. As authorities attempt to deal with Doomsday, he retaliates, and his powers begin to evolve to a point where Doomsday can unleash an energy surge powerful enough to damage the city. As Batman is relayed the info from Alfred about Doomsday, the Warrior Woman, now identified as Miss Prince, leaves the plane for a seemingly unknown reason. Back at Metropolis, Superman then attempts to take Doomsday into space. Meanwhile, the government, by order of the President, gets ready to launch a nuclear missile at both Superman and Doomsday, much to Swanwick and his seconds' protest. The missile is launched as Superman takes Doomsday higher and higher into space, ultimately getting hit by the nuclear warhead. Batman and the people of Metropolis see the explosive sight in the sky, and see something drop down into Stryker's Island. The government sees no sign of Superman, but assumes that Doomsday died on impact, a thought that would be immediately vanquished the moment Doomsday stands up again. Doomsday would then begin to transform into his comic-accurate appearance, beginning to radiate energy, as well as shoot a heat vision beam greater than Superman's. Swanwick realizes that with every attack, it only makes Doomsday stronger, declaring Doomsday unkillable. Batman appears on Stryker's Island, catching Doomsday in his sights, who then blasts the Batwing with heat vision, knocking Batman out of the sky. Bruce then relays to Alfred that the Kryptonite Spear is the only weapon that can kill Doomsday, and so attempts to lead Doomsday back to Gotham. Meanwhile, as Superman floats through space, the sun begins to shine on him, revitalizing him with solar energy. Back at Gotham, Batman does all he can to avoid Doomsday until he brings down the Batwing. As Doomsday's heat vision goes for Batman, a familiar person protects him from the blast. The person is revealed to be none other than Miss Prince, who in truth is none other than Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman uses the shockwave from her bracers to push Doomsday back, followed by Superman pushing Doomsday away into a building. Just then, Lois then realizes that Doomsday is Kryptonian, and so returns to the abandoned building in order to retrieve the Kryptonite spear she hid. Batman relays the info to Wonder Woman just as Lois searches for the spear. Wonder Woman states that Doomsday feeds on energy, with Superman stating that Doomsday is from another world, his world. Wonder Woman claims she's killed things from other worlds before, prompting the funny moment between Superman and Batman, who both thought she was with the other person. The Trinity then readies themselves for battle as Doomsday unleashes more destructive energy, causing Lois to be trapped under the water where the spear is. Wonder Woman and Superman deal with Doomsday while Batman attempts to locate the spear. Meanwhile, Lois tries to find a way out of her trapped underwater situation as Superman and Doomsday clash heat vision beams, with Doomsday coming out on top. Just as Lois is about to drown, Superman saves her in time amongst the rubble, and then attempts to retrieve the spear himself despite his weakness toward it. Batman then attempts to evade Doomsday with his grappling hook alone. Superman then floats up to the top of the water, weakened by the spear. Superman looks on as Wonder Woman struggles to defeat Doomsday despite her cleaving his arm off. After knocking Wonder Woman away, Doomsday then forms a spike weapon where his right hand used to be. Superman then tells Lois that he loves her, making Lois realize what he's about to do, much to her protest. Superman declares that Lois is his world, followed by him taking the kryptonite spear and charging at Doomsday, his cape getting ripped off by a stationary pipe he quickly passed. Wonder Woman attempts to hold Doomsday with her lasso of Hestia, followed by Batman shooting his last kryptonite gas bomb at Doomsday, weakening him in the process. Despite the pain, Superman drives the spear straight into Doomsday's chest, but Doomsday retaliates with his hand spike, driving it into the Superman's heart. Superman then decides to push himself straight through Doomsday's weapon in order to drive the kryptonite spear straight through Doomsday. The pain of the spike through Superman's chest causing him to echo a loud death shriek before the two die simultaneously. Batman, Lois, and Wonder Woman approach the deceased Clark Kent, with Batman crossing his arms in respect. Batman then lowers Clark's body down as Lois holds him and mourns the love of her life, giving his head one last kiss. Batman approaches the scene, witnessing the death of a hero. Superman's cape floats in the wind, cementing that would be forever known as the death of Superman. Army men then enter the Kryptonian ship, only to find Lex Luthor in the presence of an image of a horned figure holding three distinct boxes, foreshadowing a dark event to come. Back in prison, Lex Luthor is placed in a cell. Meanwhile, papers of Superman's death are printed, with the death of Clark Kent also being reported as a casualty of the battle, as well as Lex Luthor's arrest, putting LexCorp in an odd position. We see the city of Metropolis mourn for Superman. Shops and businesses is closed for people in memoriam of his death. Back in Smallville, the funeral of Clark Kent has passed by. Perry in attendance, and Martha leaving a picture of Jonathan Kent beside the body of her son. Martha then approaches Lois in Clark's room, giving her a package from Clark that was meant to be a surprise. Lois opens the package to find an engagement ring, realizing that Clark was gonna ask her to marry him. Lois puts the ring on, proving her devotion and love to Clark. In both Metropolis and Smallville, the funeral was or their ceremony, with Metropolis having a funeral for Superman and with Swanwick in attendance, while Smallville has a funeral for Clark Kent. Superman is given a soldier's funeral and a custom casket with a symbol engraved on it. After the funeral, Martha discovers that an anonymous donor paid for everything, not knowing that it was Bruce Wayne. Meanwhile, as Lois looks down at Clark's grave, Bruce looks on from a distance with Miss Prince joining him. Bruce expresses how he failed Clark in life, but doesn't want to fail him in death, and so asks Miss Prince to help him find other metahumans like her, despite Miss Prince stating that they might not want to be found. Bruce, however, believes that they'll fight due to Superman's inspiration. Miss Prince then expresses how she turned her back on mankind, believing that a united world is impossible due to humanity's true nature. While Bruce explains the complexity of humanity and its true potential to make a better world, the people of Metropolis stand at Superman's memorial, now where his destroyed statue sits. The memorial states that if you seek this monument, then look around you. Miss Prince then asks why Bruce said that at the metahumans will have to fight, with Bruce replying that it's just a feeling. Miss Prince then takes her leave. Back in Metropolis prison, guards inform Luthor that the warden wants to speak with him, and as Luthor prepares to be restrained, he notices the light going out. Luthor then turns to find the Batman in front of him. Batman attempts to warn Lex Luthor that he'll be watching him, but Lex retorts by stating that for some reason he's been deemed insane, not even fit to stand trial despite his calm composure. Batman then reveals that he's arranged Lex to be transported to Arkham Asylum in Gotham, with Batman stating that he's still got friends there. However, Lex then gives Batman a warning about a coming threat that he learned about on the Kryptonian ship. Batman then brands the wall, refusing to fall into his path of hatred any longer. Luthor then shouts to a now missing Batman that he wants war, and he's coming, and that once again, Superman's existence is what has brought them. Back at Luthor's house, Police come to find his demons and angels painting upside down, depicting demons coming from the sky, foreshadowing the looming threat to come. As Bruce leaves the graveyard, Lois places the last bit of soil on Clark's coffin, followed by her taking her leave. Back at the coffin, the soil pieces begin to float, signifying a coming miracle. A post-credit scene then plays, showing a decimated planet with those insect-like soldiers surrounding every corner. Suddenly, a particular ringing sound is heard, catching the attention of the insect soldiers. Just then, the sound travels to what appears to be a pile of bodies of aliens, with a couple of green lanterns in the pile. We then see the turned back of a familiar horned individual. As the horned individual turns to reveal his monstrous face, he looks on with a surprised expression, stating that they have finally awakened.
The story begins with a narration by Miss Prince, also known as Wonder Woman, who talks about how she was so naive about the world and how she struggled with its truth about the complexities of humanity. Miss Prince would arrive at her job at the Louvre with the arrival of a truck from Wayne Enterprises showing up at the front to deliver something. A man delivers Miss Prince a briefcase containing the original picture of Wonder Woman and her team during World War I, along with a note from Bruce Wayne stating that he found the original and that maybe one day she'll tell him her story. Miss Prince then flashes back to her childhood on the island of Themyscira, home of the Amazons. As she runs through the crowd, the Amazons greet her kindly, revealing her name to be first name to be Diana. Diana then hears the voice of an Amazon named Mnemosyne call out to her, to which Diana continues running from. At the training grounds, Amazons train and fight with various weapons, with Diana looking upon them in awe and envy. Diana begins to mimic the movements of the training Amazons in order to train herself. Just then, Diana is noticed by the general of Themyscira named Antiope, as well as is found by Mnemosyne, leading Diana to run away and decide to jump off a cliffside in order to escape. Suddenly, Diana would be caught by none other than her mother, Hippolyta, queen of the Amazons. Antiope encourages Hippolyta to let Diana train, but Hippolyta is adamant that Diana focus on living a serene life. Back at their house, Diana pleads with her mother to let her train, but Hippolyta argues that Diana is too precious to her, thinking back to the day Hippolyta molded Diana out of clay and Zeus gave her life. Hippolyta then decides to tell Diana the story of their people in order for her to understand why war is not to be encouraged. Hippolyta tells the story of the gods of Olympus and their king Zeus, explaining that Zeus created humanity in his image and were pretty much born to be fair and just. Hippolyta then explains that Zeus's son Ares, the god of war, grew jealous of mankind and sought to corrupt them with emotions of hatred, leading to endless war. In hopes of influencing mankind to being pure, the Amazons were created in order to spread peace, to which had succeeded for a time. As the story is told, we then see flash-forwards of Diana meeting with Antiope in order to train in secret. In Antiope's voice, the story continues with her explaining that the corruption in men was so deep that they decided to enslave the Amazons. However, Hippolyta led a revolt against them and freed the Amazons. Meanwhile, Zeus and the Olympians decided to act against Ares for his actions, only for Ares to ultimately kill the Olympians in the process until Zeus remained. Zeus used what remained of his power to kill Ares, but it instead wounded Ares to the point of retreat, leading Zeus's fear that he may one day return to finish what he started, an endless war where humanity will destroy itself. As the story goes on, Diana continues her training with sword and horseback training by Antiope. Antiope then explains that Zeus left a weapon in order to combat Ares, and with his dying breath, created Themyscira, an invisible island. All has been quiet ever since. Diana is walking with her mother, with Hippolyta thanking the gods for the paradise they live in. Diana then asks about the god killer, leading Hippolyta to lead Diana to a great tower, where this god killer's sword rests. Hippolyta claims that only the fiercest can wield the sword, and that Diana is not that. Years later, however, Diana continues her training with Antiope, who claims that Diana keeps doubting herself. Suddenly, Hippolyta arrives, discovering that Antiope and Diana have been training in secret, hurting Hippolyta in the process. Antiope argues that Hippolyta neglects her duty as queen by not letting Diana train, to which Hippolyta tries to make the excuse that Ares may never return. Antiope reassures Hippolyta that Ares is alive and that it's only a matter of time before he returns. Hippolyta agrees to training, with Antiope stating that she'll train Diana 10 times harder until she surpasses Hippolyta, but can never know the truth about herself and her birth. Years later, Diana is fully grown and is at the final steps of her training, succeeding in defeating the best Amazon warriors there are. As Diana struggles against Antiope, she then creates a shockwave by clashing her bracers together, knocking Antiope back. Feeling guilty, Diana takes her leave, heading for the cliffs on her island in order to reflect and think on what she has just done. As Diana begins to feel a sense of calm, the sound of an airplane is heard, with one actually ending up past the invisible barrier that hides Themyscira and falling into the ocean side. Diana then dives into the water in order to investigate, with a more modern-clothed man trying to escape the plane he's in, which is falling apart and sinking fast. As the man is sinking with his plane, Diana acts quickly and brings the man to shore, saving his life. Meanwhile, a vessel belonging to the enemy enters through the barrier, discovering Themyscira. The man wakes up, being greeted by Diana, who is curious at meeting her first man. Diana asks who the man is, but then notices the men who are in pursuit of the one Diana has rescued. To make a long story short, the pilot states that those men are the bad guys and he's the good guy. Suddenly, Hippolyta and the Amazons encounter Diana with the pilot, with Hippolyta warning him to step away from her. However, the enemies who the pilot points out are the Germans begin shooting at the Amazons. As the Germans come ashore, their guns begin killing Amazons one by one. As the battle rages on, Antiope and her army attacks, seemingly defeating the German unit. Meanwhile, the pilot obtains one of the Germans' rifles, while Diana obtains a bow, joining in the fight alongside Hippolyta. As a German soldier aims his rifle at Diana, Antiope takes the bullet, mortally wounded as a result. As Antiope tries to tell Diana something, she dies in Diana's arms. Blaming the pilot, Hippolyta attempts to attack him, but Diana claims that he fought at her side. The Amazons then question the pilot on why he wears their colors, with him claiming that he cannot tell them. Moments later, the Amazons interrogate the pilot with the lasso of Hestia, which compels those to tell the truth. The pilot reveals himself to be Captain Steve Trevor from British intelligence, who was sent on a mission to infiltrate the Germans' ranks in order to discover the secrets of a man named General Ludendorff and a scientist named Dr. Isabel Almaro, also known as Dr. Poison. Steve would discover that they were working on a poison that could even corrode a gas mask, leading him to steal Dr. Poison's research journal and escape back to England, but not before destroying their lab. If Steve can return to British intelligence with the notes from the journal, then a chance to end the war or to end all wars can be a reality. Diana questions Steve about the war, with Steve describing the horrors of it and making it seem like as if the world was going to end. Despite Hippolyta ordering the man to stay a prisoner, Diana insists on going with him to the mainland in order to stop the war, as Diana believes that this war is Ares' doing. Hippolyta argues, however, that there is much Diana does not understand, as men are easily corruptible, and so forbids Diana from acting on her hasty emotions. Meanwhile, Steve is bathing in a spring and Diana arrives, slightly embarrassing Steve due to his nudity. Steve and Diana begin to talk and get to know each other, leading to Diana to help Steve escape by stealing the lasso of Hestia, the God-Killer sword, and her signature armor, defying Hippolyta's order. After Diana and Steve get to the boat, Hippolyta encounters the duo but decides to let Diana discover the harsh reality of man on her own, not before giving her Antiope's tiara. As the duo take their leave, an Amazon questions Hippolyta's choice not to tell Diana something, with Hippolyta stating that the more Diana knows, the sooner Ares will find her. On the way to England, Diana and Steve speak of Ares. with Diana stating if Ares dies, then the Germans will be free of his control, with Steve simply playing along with her naivety. Diana and Steve then begin to bond some more, with Diana even learning the concept of marriage from Steve, the two continuing to talk until they fall asleep. Back in Germany, Ludendorff rendezvous with Dr. Poison, who argues that her research is nothing without her book. Ludendorff argues that she will have it back, but it's her he believes in, not the book. Dr. Poison does, however, present a new power-enhancing gas, granting Ludendorff superhuman feats as a result of breathing the gas in. That morning, Diana and Steve arrive in London, making their way to British intelligence. At British intelligence, Diana meets Steve's secretary, Etta Candy. After a while, Steve and Etta help Diana find the right clothes to blend in, followed by confiscating Diana's sword and shield. Just then, Steve notices that he and Diana are being followed, only to end up getting ambushed in an alley by German soldiers after Poison's book. Steve fights back, but Diana takes the reins in the fight, having a better chance at defeating the soldiers. After the battle, the last soldier, who's held up by Etta with sword in hand, takes a cyanide pill and takes his own life in order not to be tortured into revealing any information. Moments later, Steve and Diana enter the British intelligence's main war room, where they have a discussion on the armistice with Germany. Steve then presents the book to one of his superiors, but is falling on deaf ears until a man named Patrick Morgan appears, thanking Diana for giving him a chance to speak, as a woman's presence in the war room is apparently restricted and distracting. Steve presents Diana as Diana Prince, who he claims helped him retrieve Poison's book. Steve also states that the contents of Poison's book may change the course of the war. Meanwhile, Dr. Poison demonstrates her newest gas, which succeeds in corroding a gas mask. Back in the war room, Diana translates the Sumerian language within the book to the leaders in England, telling them about the gas that masks won't be able to protect them from. Diana then states that the book says that they plan to release the gas at the front, leading Steve to try and convince the leaders to find the source of the gas and destroy it. However, one of the leaders argues that they can't be seen sending in soldiers when they are negotiating the enemy's surrender. Steve argues that soldiers will die if they don't act now, but the leader reflects by stating that dying is what soldiers do, catching Diana's attention. Patrick even states that the armistice is the most vital subject they must focus on, followed by the arguing leader ordering Steve to do nothing. Steve seemingly relents, but Diana argues the matter, stating that leaders such as the men in the room should be fighting on the battlefield alongside their soldiers and dying alongside them as well. Back in the main lobby, Steve tells Diana he was lying about relenting, even going so far as to submit to the lasso of Hestia to prove his words. Steve then states that they're going to need reinforcements. Moments later, Steve introduces a duo of allies to Diana, two men known as Samir and Charlie. At first, the two are skeptical about going on a mission with a woman, but Diana saves Charlie from being killed by a drunk who pulls a gun on him, leading to the two to change their minds. Etta and Patrick then meet up with the group in order to support their mission. Patrick then gives Steve enough money to support themselves during the mission, wishing the group luck. Diana and company then take the train to get to their next destination, with Diana noticing wounded soldiers headed toward the train they just came from, horrified at the sight. Meanwhile, Ludendorff enters his own war room in order to convince his fellow leaders to reconsider the armistice in exchange for continuing the fight, but his words fall on deaf ears. Unsatisfied with their resolve, Ludendorff has Poison release her gas into the room with the leaders inside, with Ludendorff leaving a gas mask in there as a sick joke. Ludendorff then takes more of his enhancement gas, followed by him taking his leave with Poison at his side, stating that it's time to demonstrate for the Kaiser. Meanwhile, Diana and company settle after setting up camp, with Charlie having a PTSD attack in his sleep. Diana tries to help him, but he resists, deciding to go on patrol instead of sleep. Diana is also introduced to Chief, a native member of the team who shares his story about Steve's people wiping his people out, leaving him with nothing. The next day, Diana and company arrive at the battlefield, witnessing the horrors of war all around them, catching Diana's attention, but can do nothing to help. When Diana gets to the trenches, a woman begs Diana to help her, leading Diana to plead with Steve to help the people. However, Steve states that the position of their battalion hasn't moved in a year due to the machine guns on the other side of no man's land, claiming that they can't save anyone. Despite this, Diana acts, charging headfirst into the battlefield with sword and shield in hand. As Steve and company attempt to go after her, Diana deflects the bullets with her bracers. As Diana gets closer, she uses her shield to deflect the bullets of the machine guns, with Steve and company then coming to aid her by shooting the machine gun shooters and giving the army a chance to push back at the Germans. Diana and company then make it to the German trench, bringing down the entire German battalion of no man's land. The group then moves onto the occupied village, with Diana taking the lead in the battle and fighting off countless German soldiers. Meanwhile, Steve and company continue on, aiding Diana's attack on the German unit. Steve and company then help Diana charge at a sniper at the top of a bell tower, with Diana coming out of the attack completely unscathed and successfully freeing the village from German occupation. The people would celebrate this victory, with Diana and company getting their photograph taken, the same one that would appear in Batman v Superman. Diana then gets to know Samir's story, who reveals that he wanted to be an actor but was judged by the color of his skin, revealing more to humanity's prejudice against each other to Diana. Diana, however, is still convinced that this is the work of Ares. Steve reports back to Patrick and Etta, with Etta revealing that Ludendorff and Poison are going to be attending a gala, to which Patrick forbids them from attending due to their appearance there to be a threat to the armistice. Diana then surmises that Ludendorff is Ares since he held the biggest hand in creating the weapon of mass destruction. Moments later, Diana and company celebrate, with Steve and Diana sharing a romantic dance, leading to the two having their first romantic night together and cementing their love to each other. The next day, Diana and company venture off to the location of the gala, leading Chief to steal a car and help Steve infiltrate the gala. However, Diana decides to act on her own. Steve, disguised as a German soldier, attempts to woo Poison in exchange for information. However, Diana distracts him, leading Poison to refuse Steve's advances. Diana gets closer to Ludendorff, only to end up unexpectedly joining him in a dance, leading to a conversation about what war is. As Ludendorff takes his leave, Diana attempts to go for the kill, but is stopped by Steve, who claims that they need to know where the gas is before they kill Ludendorff. However, Diana argues that Ares' death will free mankind, only for Steve to argue that Ares may not exist, leading to Diana to continue to act on her own. However, the gas bomb is launched at a nearby village, causing great death and destruction to all who live there. Diana and Steve make it to the village only to find everything dead from the gas. Distraught at the horror caused by the gas, Diana accuses Steve of being corrupted by Ares and decides to go after him on her own. Following Chief's smoke signal, Diana continues on and reaches a German outpost to find and kill Ludendorff. Diana then confronts and battles Ludendorff to the death, with Ludendorff enhancing himself with the empowering gas, becoming Diana's equal in a physical battle. After the fight, Diana succeeds in killing Ludendorff. However, Diana begins to notice that the German army hasn't stopped. Steve then catches up to Diana, revealing to her that it's humanity's choice to fight and cause war. Shattered at this revelation, Diana exclaims that humanity truly does not deserve her or the Amazons' help. But Steve argues that it's not about deserving them, but about what people believe. The rest of the group shows up, finding the cargo of gas being loaded up onto the plane. Meanwhile, Patrick appears to Diana, stating that humanity doesn't deserve their help, but deserves only destruction. This being the reveal that Patrick is truly Ares, much to Diana's surprise. As Steve and company attempt to retrieve the gas, Ares explains that all he wanted to do was prove to his father's creation was an evil one, but Zeus wouldn't listen. Diana then thrusts the god-killer sword at Ares, only for him to melt the blade at his mere touch, much to Diana's surprise. Ares would then reveal that the god-killing weapon was actually Diana, who was actually the daughter of Hippolyta and Zeus, due to only a god being able to kill another god. At first, Diana doesn't believe Ares, prompting her to use the lasso of Hestia. Ares then explains that mankind destroyed the world day by day, with Ares being the only one to see the truth, but Zeus left Ares too weak to stop humanity. However, it was Ares giving ideas to those who could influence war, leaving their decisions up to them. Ares revealing that he does not control the corruption of humanity. Ares then reveals that he wanted Diana to see the truth about humanity herself, so she would join him in wiping them out in order to return to the world to its original paradise state. Ares then causes an explosion for all to see, knocking Diana outside. Ares then uses telekinesis to damage Diana, who can't seem to even touch him with the lasso of Hestia. Despite the battle, Steve and company focus on the mission, putting their faith in Diana. As Ares is getting the upper hand, Steve makes a run for the plane carrying the gas, encountering Diana along the way. With Diana's ears ringing, we can see Steve mouth the words that he loves her, and gives his watch as a memento to her. Steve then runs to catch the plane, defeating the German soldiers inside. Meanwhile, Ares forms armor from the metal debris around him. The battle between him and Diana continues as Steve takes over as the pilot of the plane he's in. Ares tells Diana that she will join him or die while Poison escapes, the company destroying the hangar with all the weapons. As the battle between Diana and Ares rages on, she sees her team continuing to fight, even when all hope seems lost. Diana then witnesses Steve getting as high as he can until he decides to blow himself up with the gas along with him, sacrificing himself to save countless lives. Diana screams in agony in the wake of his death, unleashing her inner power and attempting to kill the remaining German soldiers. Ares encourages her rage against the soldiers, claiming that mankind ruined the world and are filled with hatred just like Steve. Diana then attacks Ares in a rage, with Ares presenting Dr. Poison to her, with her true face being revealed. As Diana is about to kill Poison with a piece of debris, Diana hears Steve's voice, remembering what he said. A flashback shows that Steve told her that he can save today, while Diana can save the world. Steve wishes that they had more time, but then states that he loves her before getting on the plane. Back in the present, Diana realizes that they were wrong about humanity, which they are much more than what Ares says they are. As Ares attacks, Diana harnesses her new divine powers to a point, seemingly getting the best of him. Ares states that humanity does not deserve her protection, but Diana argues that it's not about deserve, but it's about what you believe, and what she believes in is love. Ares then claims he will destroy Diana, followed by teleporting himself and Diana to the ruins of Olympus, using his powers. Diana looks around and questions Ares as to what had happened, as to where they are, as everything around her is destroyed and ruined, leading to Ares to reveal that they are on Olympus, and that he sought the aid of a power greater than even his father, as sometimes one must make a deal with the devil in order to return to heaven. Utilizing her powers, Diana continues her great battle with Ares, who seemingly begins to absorb what's left of the divine energy in Olympus's environment, leading him to form a more comic-accurate armor. Ares then his hands then begin to glow. Ares then uses his telekinesis to use the debris and leftover weapons of Olympus, as well as enhancing them with lightning from his hands, and hurls them at Diana. Diana does what she can to defend herself, but she is pushed back, with her bracers being removed as a result of Ares' previous attack. As Ares approaches Diana, he then tells Diana that she should consider herself lucky, as while he wants to save the Earth from humanity, there are new gods out there who wouldn't even give Diana or the Earth the chance he's offering them. Ares then gives her one final chance to join him, claiming that humanity is broken, and perhaps they together can create a truly perfect and pure race. However, within Diana's mind, she sees her mother's image, being able to communicate with her telepathically for an unknown reason. Diana asks Hippolyta if everything Ares said was true, leading Hippolyta to confirm it. Diana asks that if she was the god killer all along, then why did Hippolyta keep it a secret from her? Hippolyta claims at first that she excused her actions by stating that Ares would find her more quickly if she knew the truth, but that truly wasn't the main reason. The truth was that Hippolyta was not ready to let Diana go, that she didn't want her only child to bear the burden of the world on her shoulders, even at the cost of the world itself. Diana then apologizes for not listening to her mother, who encourages Diana to run and return to Themyscira. However, Diana would tell her mother that while she was right about humanity, she fails to realize just how their flaws make them as perfect as they should be, and are capable of so much more. Diana claims that she must stay for man's sake. Hippolyta admits that while she still doesn't believe that humanity deserves her, Diana might just be the answer man has been looking for. Hippolyta then tells Diana to never forget who she is, the daughter of Hippolyta and Zeus, a woman of wonders, granting Diana the title of Wonder Woman. Diana then opens her eyes as a divine light shines from them, followed by Diana unleashing her full divine power, causing an explosion of energy that pushes Ares back. Ares then recognizes the bracers and states that they are the bracers of Aegis and must have been concealing Diana's true power for all these years, much to Diana's satisfaction. Ares then blasts a beam of lightning at Diana, to which she uses her divine power to absorb the blast and return it to Ares, mortally wounding him in the process. As the smoke clears and the sun shines down on the ruined Olympus, Ares is shown on the ground with a hole in his torso. Ares then states that while she may have bested the Alpha, she has yet to face the Omega, and it will be the Omega who unveils the true dark side of humanity. Ares then turns to dust in the wind, with Diana saying goodbye to her brother. Seemingly as a sort of act of kindness, the dust particles of Ares is utilized as their lightning powers to teleport Diana back to Earth, with Earth celebrating the end of World War I, as moments later Diana walks through the crowd, witnessing what true peace looks like, even if it is temporary. Diana visits a memorial, finding a picture of Steve Trevor, who she'll always hold in her heart. Back in Diana's present, she looks at the framed photo sent to her by Bruce Wayne, and then looks at the watch that Steve left, narrating that the only way to save the world is love. Diana then heads to the rooftop, donning her outfit and weapons, narrating that this is her mission forever, and so takes off to continue her mission as Wonder Woman. A post-credit scene shows Etta entering a bar, meeting up with the group, who now call themselves the Wonder Men. Etta then relays to them about going on a mission that involves retrieving an artifact and giving it to the Americans. As Etta gets up to get a drink, the gunman from earlier attempts to settle his score with Charlie, but Etta brings him down with ease. Etta then gives maps and files to the Wonder Men, only for a file to show the image of a familiar and particular-looking box. What is up, guys? JT Anime Nerd here, bringing you all that nerdy goodness. Today, we sort of continue my version of the DC Extended Universe / Snyderverse with David Ayer's Suicide Squad. The only problem I'm facing, however, is that the movie has yet to be released. So until the movie is released, I don't plan on doing that video until then, because I feel that I need to know the director's original vision before I decide if it's all fine, or if I need to change something. So instead of doing a summary of David Ayer's Suicide Squad, I'm going to be talking about the movie instead. The issues it's been facing with WB, what we know so far about it, and where it can inevitably go within my version of the story. With all that explained, let's get into it. Starting off, apparently the movie would have begun with an extended version of June Moon discovering and becoming Enchantress. The relationship between her and Rick Flag would have also been put forward, making the emotional death of the Enchantress all the more tragic, which would have made more sense as June Moon, who never returns in any of the other movies, kind of giving an excuse to kill Rick Flag off in the Suicide Squad, which I did not like. One of the biggest issues that DC movies have always had a problem with is continuity, and despite June Moon no longer being Enchantress, I feel she could have contributed in some way in a future or storyline. But since WB even back then didn't want to bring back any of Zack Snyder's characters, they became stubborn and pretty much just pretty much gave her back a normal life, acting like she didn't matter anymore. Which to me is a big letdown, because even her archaeology skills could have been helpful in future movies, such as Justice League 2, as she could have been helpful in finding the anti-life equation in some way. There also would have been more emphasis on the toxic relationship between the Joker and Harley, leading to Deadshot and Harley and to end up falling for each other. Pages from the script of Ayer's Suicide Squad were also leaked, revealing that the infamous stripper scene with Common was still in the movie, but it was supposed to be something to add to the abuse Joker puts Harley through. Ooh. Also, I've been hearing that the movie was supposed to end with Joker supposedly shooting Harley at the end, not killing her, but getting revenge for her moving on from him. I'm just going on with what I heard. But if there's one thing the studio interference did mess with, it was what Jared Leto's Joker was supposed to be. I actually even heard recently that the director kind of regrets giving Joker the tattoo on his head, which, yeah, not a big fan of the Joker having tattoos, but I still think Jared Leto's Joker still could have knocked it out the ballpark if not for the studio interference. What's the proof? The scene at the very end of Zack Snyder's Justice League. Jared Leto was exactly the Joker we all wanted him to be in Suicide Squad, and so that gives me hope as to his portrayal in this movie, especially from everything we've been hearing about him. WB and WB's just really been slipping up with everyone and trying to interfere in all their movies and ruin their characters and story. The Joker being, I think, the most major part ruined in David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Another major difference would have been the survival of El Diablo, as seen in a photo David Ayer shared on social media, as well as more mind-controlled Suicide Squad members as shown in the leaked script of Suicide Squad, such as Kitana and Killer Croc. Kitana would apparently would have been the one to defeat Incubus and seal his soul within her sword. This is another major issue for Suicide Squad, as none of the other characters kind of got essential roles. Killer Croc, Kitana, Anna. Heck, I think it even looks like Slipknot's in this very shot. I'm not even completely sure, or if that is Slipknot or not. But no pun intended. So a lot of the side characters kind of didn't get full story arcs. I mean, El Diablo kind of got a story arc in his own way, but they didn't fully explain what that power was when he seemed to transform into that skeleton-looking monster. And I felt like we would have gotten more explanation into that. But all in all, the side characters were basically sidelined and just used as fodder for certain parts. Even though they tried to find a use for Killer Croc in the original version, all he did was swim him down a certain area to help them through. So yeah, the side characters needed more justice. David Ayer's version of Suicide Squad was also going to have the Enchantress strike a deal with the Joker in exchange for giving him Gotham to rule over. This would have happened after the helicopter scene when he crashed, giving reason as to why there are images of Joker with a burned face. The Joker would apparently come out in the final battle, but take this chance to escape from the mayhem. See, that is the kind of Joker we wanted to see. Not just a Joker who's love-struck, but a Joker who is dark, manipulative, and will even side with world-ending evil to get at what he desires, which kind of makes you wonder why exactly he didn't want to join Darkseid, but Darkseid probably doesn't value him, so probably wouldn't give him anything anyway. When it comes to Joker in the final battle, it could have been better. I actually did enjoy the final battle in the redone Suicide Squad. It wasn't that bad, but considering we could have gotten a better version, yeah, I am very much looking forward to the release of David Ayer's Suicide Squad. Oh yeah, and I forgot to mention this earlier. Slipknot apparently has his backstory showed in Ayer's film. It's already shot, but I think we all know I Actually, you know what? Scratch that. Originally, I was gonna say, hey, we all know he was just turned out to be kill fodder, but the shot that shows El Diablo still alive, yeah, it looks like Slipknot might also be there too. So was he meant to make it all the way? And if so, then how would they Waller and her team and Rick Flag show that the bombs in their necks are real? Like, I feel like what Captain Boomerang did, tricking Slipknot into basically he killing himself. Pretty much would have been in something that have happened. So if they decide to keep Slipknot alive, how will Amanda Waller show that they mean business? I really do hope if Slipknot's alive, they explain that, because as I gotta tell you again, that scene just feels like it would actually happen in either version with Slipknot's death. I mean. Now, for what I'd consider to be the biggest part of this movie is that there was also supposed to be a connection to Zack Snyder's Justice League, with the Enchantress actually being mind-controlled by a mother box and was preparing to bring Steppenwolf for his invasion via boom tube. One of the only ways I can honestly imagine that happening is if she stole the mother box before Silas Stone took it, and she used it to pretty much help her plan, and then she would unexpectedly get mind controlled, and that of course would lead to Steppenwolf preparing for his invasion earlier than Zack Snyder's Justice League via boom tube. But I'm pretty sure, since this was supposed to link into Zack Snyder's Justice League, that of course was meant to fail, and Steppenwolf wouldn't have a chance to come back until what happens in Themyscira in Zack Snyder's Justice League. Though we have yet to see the film, I do honestly prefer the botched Suicide Squad over James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. The first Suicide Squad at least tried to have a more serious tone mixed with Guardians of the Galaxy type comedy. Big mistake on their part. The Suicide Squad is a full comedy altogether, which makes it enjoyable in my eyes. But as I've stated before about DC movies, they need to be epic, not just enjoyable. And I found the original Suicide Squad, even though it wasn't David Ayer's original version, more epic than enjoyable. Needless to say, David Ayer's original vision would have been incredible, but thanks to the bad management at WB, it sadly did not see the light of day. But I for one have hope for the Ayer cut. In fact, the only upside about James Gunn taking the reins of DC films is that it seems he supports David Ayer's cut of Suicide Squad, and plans on releasing it eventually. How long will that be? Only time will tell. The movie begins with a couple of kids with a camera phone going up to Superman without the bad CGI mustache covering, in the aftermath of what appears to be a fire. The kids stating that it's for their podcast, leading Superman to play along. First, the kids ask Superman how many people he saved, but as Superman thinks for a moment, the kids decide to ask a new question in a rush, asking if his symbol truly stands for hope. Superman confirms their question, with the kid stating that it looks like an S, Superman replying that it's meant to wind like a river, and that it comes and goes. Superman then states that a man he knew said that hope is like car keys, easy to lose, but if you dig around, it's usually close by. The kids then ask Superman what's the best thing about planet Earth, to which Superman seems to have an answer to, but the video cuts off. We then see a flag give us the title card for Batman v Superman, Reign of Justice. We then see the world struggling without Superman. Banners are held up in his honor. Lois Lane visits his memorial every now and then, and alongside those who wish to honor him. Even Martha Kent visits Clark's grave every now and then in Smallville. Meanwhile, it seems crime and hopelessness has risen in Metropolis as a shop is harassed by an angry man who is then arrested by police. A homeless man with a dog is sitting at a corner of a building with a cardboard piece by him that inscribed the words, "I tried." Back in Gotham, at Gotham National Bank, a hostage situation is happening inside. Masked men hold civilians and employees at gunpoint. Meanwhile, outside, Commissioner Gordon makes it to the scene and is recapped on everything going on by Crispus Allen. Crispus would explain that the bank is being held hostage by one of Gotham's top criminal groups. Gordon asks who they are, with Crispus claiming that it's an old two-faced friend. Back in Gotham National Bank, Two-Face, also known as Harvey Dent and portrayed by Matthew McConaughey, goes on a monologue that alludes to the multiverse theory to the hostages and explains how one of two choices can decide one's fate. Two-Face then notices a scared little girl in the corner and then points his gun at her. Hostages plead for Two-Face to not hurt her, but Two-Face states that it's not up to him, but up to fate. Two-Face then flips his signature coin up, creating a tension that could be cut by a knife. Just then, the Batman smashes through a window and knocks Two-Face down, protecting the girl from the bullet Two-Face's gun fires due to the attack. Batman then brawls with the remaining henchmen, saving the hostages. As the hostages leave the bank, Batman finds a business card in Two-Face's suit pocket about a place called the Iceberg Lounge, scanning it with a device from his utility belt. Moments later, Batman and Gordon are talking in the bank, with Gordon stating that the getaway car escaped before Gotham even arrived. Batman then presents Gordon with the business card for the Iceberg Lounge, with Gordon stating that it's been a part of Gotham for years and is owned by the Cobblepot family, and even tells Batman that it's owned by a guy everyone refers to as the Penguin due to his crooked nose. Meanwhile, at the Iceberg Lounge, henchmen bring in the getaway driver from the robbery and present him to the Penguin, portrayed by Jonah Hill. The Penguin scolds the getaway driver for running, but the driver argues that as soon as Gotham PD arrived, he knew that the Batman was not far behind. Not caring for excuses, Penguin shoots and kills the driver. Penguin then goes on about how the criminal underworld has been rising in power since Superman's death, and yet there are those in Gotham that appear to be afraid of an ordinary man in a batsuit. But his campaign to become mayor of Gotham is going to change all that. Just then, Penguin's henchmen escort a man that wants to meet Penguin named Otis into Penguin's office, claiming to be a representative from LexCorp. Meanwhile, in the Iceberg Lounge's main hall, a raven-haired woman in a dress, who is none other than Selina Kyle, portrayed by Carla Gugino, is revealed to be overhearing Penguin and Otis due to a special radio earpiece in her ear. Back at Gotham PD headquarters, Gordon and Batman interrogate Two-Face, who is adamant on staying silent. However, Batman and Gordon appeal to Harvey Dent, the true identity of Two-Face, who in truth is a morally corrupt split personality of Harvey obsessed with the possibilities of choice. After breaking through to him, Harvey reveals that he was snuck out of Arkham Asylum by a couple of bribed guards hired by a blonde woman in a clipboard, catching Gordon and Batman's attention. Meanwhile, at LexCorp, Penguin ends up meeting with Eve Tessmacher, Lex Luthor's secretary, who is also the woman with the clipboard, portrayed by Reese Witherspoon. Eve explains to Penguin that Luthor has been monitoring his campaign for a long time, even before Superman's death, and wants to assist in his candidacy for mayor of Gotham. Skeptical, Penguin asks what Luthor gets out of this, to which Eve states that Luthor has said that his reasons is potential future partnership due to the Cobblepot family's resources. Eve then shows on a monitor, rambling on about Gotham's issue with masked vigilantes, showing images of Batman, the deceased Robin, Catwoman, and even a blurred blink and you'll miss it image of Batgirl. Eve then goes on to state that Luthor has provided an answer for this problem. Eve then presses a button on a console, opening a door that reveals something that catches Penguin's attention. Back at the Batcave, Bruce and Alfred are analyzing the scan of the business card about the Iceberg Lounge, trying to find any fingerprints or DNA on it besides that of Harvey Dent. Alfred then talks to Bruce about Diana, aka Wonder Woman, who has been calling Batman non-stop, but Bruce keeps ignoring her calls. Bruce argues that she hasn't found any of the metahumans listed in Luthor's data, and so finds any other conversation irrelevant. But Alfred argues that she's just trying to get him out of the cave every once in a while. Steering off from the conversation, Bruce asks Alfred if he's found anything on the business card. Alfred then states that considering the condition of the business card, it's been exactly 10 years since it was given to him, and coincidentally, it was also given to him around the time before Harvey Dent went missing and came back as Two-Face. Bruce and Alfred then surmise that it's possible that Dent and the Cobblepot family were doing business together. However, Alfred states that Harvey was actually the opposing candidate against the current head of the Cobblepot family for the position to become the mayor of Gotham, catching Bruce's attention. Meanwhile, at the Louvre, Diana is placing an ancient blade within a wooden box when the news on the nearby TV talking about a soon-to-be space shuttle launch in Metropolis that was funded and built by LexCorp, making Diana not feel too excited due to LexCorp's involvement in Superman's death. Suddenly, Diana's manager approaches her and tells her to go to Gotham and act as a representative of the museum in order to thank the head of the Cobblepot family for their generous donation of $5 million. Moments later, Diana is on a plane to Gotham while looking through a magazine, only to see an ad for Wayne Enterprises reminding her of Bruce. Back in Gotham the next day, Bruce arrives at the Iceberg Lounge, speaking to Alfred via comlink. Using satellite scan, Alfred goes on to state that there is a network of underground rooms beneath the building, assuming they're used to hide laundered money. As Bruce is about to head for the door to these underground rooms, he is intercepted and approached by the Penguin, who introduces himself as Oswald Cobblepot. Oswald gets acquainted with Bruce and even mentions history between their fathers. Oswald then discusses why Wayne Enterprises hasn't helped fund the Excalibur project, the name of the space shuttle that's set to launch in a couple days that was developed by LexCorp. Bruce goes on to talk about how he stopped any business involving LexCorp since Superman's death, as everyone knows that Lex Luthor is to blame for it. Penguin agrees with Bruce, but states that what someone takes, another can give back. Bruce questions Penguin's words, but he dodged the question, rambling on about how he had been cradled under his parents' money for too long like a penguin chick. However, he realized that he was being trapped, not comforted, as his parents never truly loved him and only wanted to use him for business purposes. This was the one big difference between him and Bruce that Penguin makes very clear. Penguin then apologizes for being too personal when Bruce shrugs it off and mentions how tragic his former opponent Harvey Dent is. Penguin shows false sympathy for Harvey, stating that he was a good man but had a plethora of demons. Penguin then states that sometimes they forget that demons are just angels in disguise. Bruce then suddenly notices Diana across the room, who notices him in return. As Penguin notices Diana himself, he shows his charming personality and thanks her for acting as the Louvre's representative for the upcoming Excalibur launch event tomorrow. Diana expresses her gratitude and then turns her attention toward Bruce, cleverly and sarcastically exchanging greetings as if they were arguing about Bruce never taking time off as Batman. Moments later at the Batcave, Bruce relays to Diana everything he's learned about Oswald, stating that he plans to infiltrate the Iceberg Lounge and find out what Oswald is hiding underground. Diana offers to go with Bruce, but Bruce refuses her help, stating that he can handle it on his own. Diana retorts by stating for someone who's trying to bring special people together, he seems to be keen on taking on a lot on his own. Bruce argues that he's handled Gotham on his own for years and that it's been nothing different. Diana, however, retorts that what he's saying isn't the truth, stating that Batman used to have a partner, catching Bruce off guard. Saying nothing, Bruce takes his leave. That night, Batman breaks into the Iceberg Lounge, knocking out a few guards along the way. When Batman enters the underground room, he comes to find none other than Lyle Bolton, head of Penguin's security and wearing his comic-accurate costume, coming out of the room's vault with a group of henchmen. When the vault door closes, Batman attempts to defeat the henchmen, having a bit of trouble with Lyle, who reintroduces himself as Lockup and has a score to settle with Batman. As the battle gets heated, Lockup is then defeated with a sneak attack by none other than Catwoman, the woman in the dress who was listening in on the Penguin with an earpiece, who is also known as Selina Kyle outside her costume. Batman asks Catwoman why she's here, to which she states that she's here for Penguin's riches, and that a girl has to make a living somehow. Batman tries to argue with Catwoman about returning to being a thief, but she argues that he's lost the right to ever argue about morals after what he's done to countless criminals, reminding him of his time as a killer. Despite their attention, Catwoman agrees to open the vault for him, but makes it clear that Penguin's money is hers. After picking the lock to the vault, Batman and Catwoman enter a storage with multiple crates, not expecting anything other than stolen money to be in the vault. As Batman and Catwoman inspect the crates, Batman finds government-made blueprints of Superman's scout ship, piquing Batman's curiosity. Just then, Catwoman opens a crate filled with strange canisters that all have the LexCorp logo on them, causing the canisters to immediately release the gas within it. As Batman and Catwoman weaken, the voice of Lockup then plays on the speakers at the corners of the room, taunting the two when stating that a certain someone thought of everything, even the arrival of masked vigilantes. As Lockup and his henchmen set the building on fire and escape in order to tie up loose ends, Batman gives his only gas mask to Catwoman, leading her to panic as Batman begins to suffocate. Suddenly, something comes crashing through the ceiling above, turning out to be Wonder Woman, who grabs Batman and Catwoman and escapes. The next day, Penguin is speaking to Jimmy Olsen of the Daily Planet, giving his thoughts as to what happened to the Iceberg Lounge. Penguin states that his family has made many enemies during his parents' time, and is thankful that no one is hurt. Penguin also states that this will not affect the celebration of the Excalibur launch that's to be held at Gotham City Hall later today. Meanwhile, at the Batcave, Alfred is tending to healing Bruce of the gas, while Diana and Selina are standing by to keep an eye on him, the three watching the broadcast from Batman's computer monitor. As Bruce stands up after Alfred's confirmation that the gas has left his system, Alfred states that the gas is an unknown compound, and that it was a miracle that Selina's gas mask lasted for as long as it did. Diana states that she's seen gas like this before, referring to a mad chemist named Dr. Poison that once used gas like this to win World War I. Diana then states that LexCorp must have gotten their hands on some of her research. Selina then asks as to why Penguin would ambush us, and what is it that he's trying to hide. Bruce then claims he found blueprints to Superman's scout ship, the one Lex Luthor used to create his monster, referring to Doomsday. Diana asks why Oswald would have that, with Bruce theorizing that it must have something to do with the Excalibur launch. Selina surmises that maybe the ship is using Kryptonian technology in order to revolutionize space travel, with Bruce agreeing that it makes sense. Just then, a call comes through Bruce's main computer, revealing it to be Lucius Fox, played by Carlo Esposito. Lucius would inform Bruce that a short man with an odd-looking nose, referring to the Penguin, came by and offered a personal on-stage invitation to the Excalibur launch event, and exclusively for Bruce Wayne. Bruce makes it clear that he's going, but Selina argues, reminding him of what happened with the Joker and the fact that he let him into a trap while using his knowledge of Bruce's identity to his advantage. Bruce argues that the difference is that Penguin doesn't know Bruce's identity as Batman, but Diana reassures Selina that she'll look after him. As Bruce walks away to prepare for the event, Selina utterly asks Diana if she and Bruce are a thing, to which Diana confirms is not the case. Selina then states that it's a good thing they're not, because the only thing a relationship with a Batman will get at her is disappointment. Moments later at the launch station, a high-ranking employee of LexCorp asks an engineer named John, portrayed by Bokeem Woodbine, if the ship is sturdy enough to take on the heat of the sun. John reassures the employee that he built it with his own hands and team, and that it would take Superman himself to destroy the shuttle. Back at Gotham, Bruce and Diana arrive separately to the launch event at Gotham City Hall. After Bruce and Diana take their seats on stage, Eve Tessmacher approaches the podium on stage, surprising Bruce. Eve Tessmacher thanks the attendees on behalf of LexCorp, who strive to steer away from the dark legacy the Luthors have left behind, and especially after Superman's death. So they say. Eve then introduces Oswald Cobblepot to the attendees. He then thanks Diana for coming out and representing the Louvre in response to his donations to the museum, as well as Bruce Wayne, whose family has been close to his for many years. Oswald then informs the crowd to prepare for the launch. Meanwhile, at the launch site, the astronauts Hank Henshaw, Terry Henshaw, Steven, and Jim get in their seats and prepare for launch. The people at Mission Control prepare for launch as well, telling them that they are set in T-minus. Back in Gotham, the people at the launch event count down from 10 to 1. After the count of 1, the Excalibur ship is launched, bursting all the way through the clouds and making it into space. As the Excalibur crew approaches the sun, they begin to orbit it, now attempting to return to Earth. The Excalibur crew ultimately makes it around the sun, the very reason for Excalibur's existence. People in Gotham, Metropolis, and even the guys at the launch site are cheering in excitement at this achievement. However, an alarm begins to sound in the shuttle, signaling a malfunction. As Mission Control contacts the Excalibur crew, they confirm that one of the rockets was faulty and thus is hurtling them toward Earth that would inevitably kill them on impact with the ground. As everyone begins to fear for the worst, a familiar red-caped individual zooms toward the Excalibur shuttle, pulling it back as it re-enters the atmosphere until the individual safely lands it to the ground. As Hank Henshaw opens his eyes, he's in awe, unable to believe what he's just seen. The individual then flies away at a breakneck speed. Back at Gotham, everyone is confused as to what happened, but then begin to hear a familiar jet-like sound, only to see someone flying towards them. As the individual lands next to the Penguin, the individual is surprisingly revealed to be none other than Superman, portrayed by Henry Cavill, wearing a new kind of suit and is even wearing tinted yellow goggles. Penguin then presents this Superman as the future of planetary defense, much to everyone's surprise, especially Bruce, Diana, and Alfred and Selina's back at the Batcave as they watch the broadcast. The Penguin makes it clear that this Superman is a robotic creation provided by LexCorp, made from the latest and greatest of technologies. Penguin then states that this creation was put on standby for the very situation that the world just saw happen, programmed to serve and protect the people as Superman would have. Penguin presents to the audience none other than the new Superman. People cheer in celebration as Bruce and Diana look on in abject horror. Penguin then states that this isn't all, as Penguin then presents the Enforcement, a form of soldier force led by Lockup that Penguin will implement into the Gotham PD should he be elected mayor. Penguin makes a statement that under the Enforcement's protections, cities such as Gotham and Metropolis will no longer have to count on vigilantes who act as they are above the law in answer to no one. The crowd cheers in response to Penguin's words. As the weeks pass by, the cybernetic Superman does everything Superman does, averting natural disasters like tornadoes, earthquakes, and even wildfires. The cybernetic Superman reconstructs a rail using a special heat power in his hands. The cybernetic Superman and also saves children from a school bus accident and even apprehends criminals. One night in Gotham, however, news reporters and the cybernetic Superman come to find a movie set destroyed and covered in a brown substance. As the cybernetic Superman inspects the area, he comes to find a civilian who he detects is not who he says he is. When the ruse has stopped work, when the ruse can no longer work. The cybernetic Superman comes face to face with Basil Carlo, also known as Clayface and portrayed by Bobby Cannavale, who is bitter at the studio for abandoning him after hiring a younger actor to replace him many years ago. For the first time, the cybernetic Superman is having trouble fighting this new threat, as his clay body makes it easy for him to maneuver and dodge the cybernetic Superman's attacks. After Clayface hits the cybernetic Superman, damaging his head, it looks back at Clayface. However, words that state Eradicator Protocol active show up, and the cybernetic Superman becomes more violent and coldly destructive. The cybernetic Superman then uses heat vision on Clayface, hardening him to the point of being frozen. As everyone cheers for him, the cybernetic Superman then punches the clay statue, killing Clayface in an instant without remorse. This action shocks the people around him, with the cybernetic Superman leaving the scene. The next day, Penguin addresses this to the public, but makes it seem like Clayface's death was a good thing, stating that this Superman can do what the vigilantes of these cities didn't have the guts to do: finish the fight for peace. As Bruce watches the broadcast, he decides to act on his own. That night, Batman decides to sneak into LexCorp, avoiding any guards. After wandering the building for a few minutes, Batman would come to find a robotics lab and sees a familiar set of blueprints within the room. Using a laser to cut through the glass doors, Batman enters the lab and takes a better look at the blueprints, finding that the cybernetic Superman was made from the materials Luthor salvaged from the scout ship. Batman then notices that the parts were also taken from pieces of Zod's ship, including the AI that powers the cybernetic Superman and has it act on its own. As Batman scans the blueprints with a scanning device, he then looks forward to see that LexCorp is beginning to manufacture more cybernetic Supermen, shocking Batman. Not wanting LexCorp to make more, Batman sets up some explosives around on the lab, ensuring that no one is coming near the lab so as not to detonate the explosive is to keep anyone from getting hurt. After the coast is clear, Batman detonates the explosives, destroying LexCorp's production. As Batman then tries to escape, he's then confronted by the cybernetic Superman, and the cybernetic Superman attacks Batman, hurling him through the wall and into the outside parking lot. As the cybernetic Superman prepares to fire his heat vision, he's then attacked by Wonder Woman, who's arrived in the nick of time. After a lengthy fight between Wonder Woman and the cybernetic Superman, Batman begins to notice the cybernetic Superman becoming more destructive. Wonder Woman then clashes her bracers together to give her and Batman the chance to escape, which succeeds. Moments later, Penguin arrives on the scene, upset at the fact that Batman destroyed years of production in work. Eve then tells Penguin not to worry, as the events of what happened today are likely to help him in the final running to become the mayor of Gotham. Penguin asks how that's possible, with Eve stating that Luthor is always one step ahead of everyone. Back at Bruce's penthouse, Bruce and company watch the broadcast as Penguin addresses the incident at LexCorp, revealing video footage of Batman destroying the lab, making him out to be a terrorist, and also turning him into a wanted man in Gotham. Shrugging all this bad publicity off, Bruce and company go over the blueprints of the cybernetic Superman, as Selina is stitching up Bruce's wounds from his fight with the robotic Superman. Wonder Woman states that while she could feel the force of the metal from Superman's punches, she could also tell that the skin was truly organic. After going through the blueprints, Alfred discovers that Zod's DNA was used in this project, granting the cybernetic Superman actual Kryptonian abilities and organic skin. Diana states that she doesn't even know what to call that, with Bruce replying that it's a cyborg. Diana asks Bruce to confirm what that is, to which he states that a cyborg is a combination of organic life and technology, creating a half-mechanical human being. Selina then asks how they plan to beat this cyborg Superman, to which Diana suggests kryptonite, but Bruce confirms that the blueprints had already thought of that detail, as the majority of cyborg Superman's body is made from the material of Kryptonian ships, which is immune to the effects of kryptonite. Alfred then points out the name written at the corner of the blueprint that says John Henry Irons. Bruce asks who that person is, and Alfred confirms that he was the engineer at LexCorp. Bruce questions why Alfred said was, with Alfred stating that John was recently let go due to the flaw that caused the Excalibur to malfunction during its flight into space, as John is the one who created the shuttle. Bruce then asks Alfred to go over the blueprint of the space shuttle, and states that he's going to meet with John himself. Diana insists on going with him, but Bruce refuses her help, with Diana replying that he needs to quit the solo act, and that it's for these kinds of reasons he wants to put together a team in the first place. After Diana storms off upset, Selina states that Bruce was unprepared, and that's not like him at all. Bruce then states that after Superman died, he took on the burden of carrying the world on his shoulders, and that it's his burden to bear alone. Selina then points out that the last time he thought he could handle taking the burdens of the whole city on his own, a boy wonder came into his life and proved him wrong. Bruce actually expresses his concern at forming this team he's been searching for, as he doesn't want to drag anyone else down like he did Dick, who was once Robin, Batman's sidekick. Selina then makes it clear that Robin's choices were his own, and that while they always treated Batman as if he orchestrated their choices, in the end it was just an excuse for themselves to step out of the shadow of the Batman. Selina states that if there are other people like them who'll follow him, it'll be because they want to, and Batman has no say in the matter. Bruce then apologizes to Selina for failing to be the symbol she said he was. Selina makes it clear that she'll never forgive Bruce, but tells him that it's never too late to escape from living in the darkness. Meanwhile, Diana is hearing the whole conversation while hiding behind a doorway. Later that night in Metropolis, John is in a deep depression, reading a court summons that he received in the mail. John begins to tear up as his niece Natasha Irons enters the kitchen and hugs him in order to comfort him. Just then, John gets a knock at the door and is then pushed back into his home after opening it. with thugs coming in and holding him and his niece, Natasha, hostage. The leader of the thugs tells John that Lex Luthor sends his regards as he points his gun at John, much to Natasha's protest. Suddenly, Batman comes crashing through the window and takes down all but the leader of the thugs. John and Natasha attempt to escape but separate, only for Natasha to get captured and held hostage again by the thug leader. As Batman arrives to confront him, the thug leader threatens to kill Natasha if Batman comes any closer. Just then, John sneak attacks the thug leader in the face with a sledgehammer. Moments later, after John and Natasha leave the police station, Batman awaits the two outside, with John pretty much predicting what's going to happen next. Even more moments later, John explains how Superman saved him once, admiring him ever since then, and so jumped at the opportunity to create the perfect Superman, one that stood for truth, justice, and the American way. John states that he did the best with what he had, even with the Excalibur, but doesn't understand why LexCorp would send people to kill him. Batman then states that he's done his research and that he believes that the Excalibur was sabotaged and that John was a loose end LexCorp needed gone. Feeling betrayed, John offers to help Batman in any way he can in order to stick it to LexCorp. Batman asks John if he knows where Luthor got the materials used to create Cyborg Superman besides the ship in Metropolis, with John stating that the other pieces came from a military base in Nevada. The next night, Batman and Wonder Woman make it to the base in Nevada, which is none other than Area 51. As Batman is about to apologize to Diana for how he's been pushing her away lately, she interrupts, stating that she overheard his and Selina's conversation, pretty much making amends for everything that happened. After infiltrating the base, Batman and Wonder Woman would find and enter Zod's ship. After gaining access to Zod's ship's main computer, Batman would relay live video footage to Alfred and Selina back at the Batcave. Batman and Wonder Woman would discover that one of the parts of the ship they used to build Cyborg Superman is an artificial intelligence programmed by Zod in case of his failure to terraform Earth. Batman discovers that the AI is programmed to follow what's called the Eradicator Protocol. This protocol will have Cyborg Superman carry on Zod's mission to turn every Earth into a new Krypton. Back in front of Gotham City Hall, Penguin, accompanied by Lockup, is preparing to address the public in the final debate to decide Gotham's new mayor. Meanwhile, at LexCorp, Eve and a group of scientists make the final preparations for Cyborg Superman's debut in the debate in order to please the people enough for them to elect Penguin. However, Cyborg Superman's glowing blue eyes begin to glitch crimson red back and forth. Meanwhile, Batman and Wonder Woman are zooming back to Gotham using the Batwing. Batman contacts Alfred, who states that Penguin will no doubt have Cyborg Superman show up for the debate with his last opposing candidate. After a lengthy debate about the safety of Gotham back at Gotham City Hall, Penguin makes his point to appease the people by having Cyborg Superman make an appearance, the mere sight of him causing the audience to cheer, pretty much guaranteeing Penguin's victory in the race. However, as the crowd becomes more rowdy, Cyborg Superman's eradication protocol is activated. Cyborg Superman stating his prime directive, rebuild Krypton, destroy all life forms. Cyborg Superman then begins to attack the people, who either get hurt or killed in the carnage. This shocks Penguin, who's escorted away by Lockup. Just then, Batman and Wonder Woman arrive in the nick of time, with Wonder Woman attempting to hold Cyborg Superman off. Batman then catches up to Penguin and tells him that he needs to shut the Cyborg Superman down, but Penguin's pride leaves him devoid of all reason, blaming this incident on Batman and Wonder Woman after their encounter at LexCorp. As Penguin attempts to escape, Lockup and his enforcers attempt to kill Batman, but Batman defeats each one of them, especially Lockup. Meanwhile, as the battle between Wonder Woman and Cyborg Superman ages, Cyborg Superman shoots heat vision at Wonder Woman, who deflects the beam back where it came from. The beam ends up hitting Cyborg Superman across his body, creating a damaged and comic-accurate design of Cyborg Superman. Despite it being half machine, Wonder Woman tries to reason with Cyborg Superman's organic half, but he simply responds by stating he has only one directive, eradication. Cyborg Superman then stating his codename, Eradicator. Back in a nearby building, Penguin nearly escapes, but is intercepted by Catwoman, leading to a fight between the two. Penguin seems to get the upper hand thanks to his weaponized umbrella, but is then attacked and beaten by Batman, defeating the Penguin once and for all. As Batman cuffs Penguin himself, Penguin then reveals that he knows who Batman is, referring to him as Bruce Wayne. Penguin then states that LexCorp is set to release this information via internet to every authority in Gotham. However, Alfred intercepts the call, stating that he anticipated something like this and sent word to an old Oracle friend to intercept the signal and block the information from getting out entirely, frustrating the Penguin to the point where the Penguin begins to try and get under Batman's skin, and pretty much confessing how he kidnapped Harvey Dent and tortured him to the point where he gave in to his other half. Catwoman then states that Diana's not looking good out there, and asks Batman how he plans to help. Batman then states that he developed something in case he would ever have to go have a rematch with Superman again. Catwoman asks what something, with Bruce replying, a big something. Alfred then states that he's sending the JB. Back at Gotham City Hall, the battle between Wonder Woman and the Eradicator continues. As Wonder Woman seems to be getting defeated by the Eradicator, due to his heated hands damaging her, something drops down from above behind the two combatants, crashing into the vicinity. Batman then glides down and enters the machine, revealing it to be the Justice Buster armor. Both Batman and Wonder Woman fight their hardest to defeat Eradicator, but are still struggling despite dealing some damage to him. However, Alfred points out and confirms that the AI is stored where the brain should be in Cyborg Superman. After a more lengthy final battle, Wonder Woman ends up grabbing Eradicator's head and ripping it off Mortal Kombat style with her bare hands. She then throws it to the ground and stabs it directly into the center of its head where the AI is stored, finally ending the battle. The next day, a news report states that Gotham is still recovering from the tragedy that happened at Gotham City Hall, but thanks to heroes who took a stand and fought for the people of Gotham, stating that Superman would be proud and Batman is no longer a wanted man. As the sun rises on Gotham, Batman and Catwoman stand on top of a rooftop to admire it for a bit. Batman states that this is just like old times, but Catwoman states that she tends to look toward the future these days, not the past. Batman asks when he'll see her again, but she replies stating, who knows? She's a thief, but kind of likes the feeling of being a hero again. Surprisingly, Catwoman then kisses Batman, followed by her telling Batman to take care of her, confusing Batman. Catwoman states that he'll get it eventually, taking her leave as she says it. Moments later, Bruce meets up with Diana on the streets of Gotham. Diana asks Bruce if he wants to patrol the city tonight, with Bruce replying no, instead wanting to just go for a coffee and ask Diana to join him. Diana accepts the offer, much to her delight. Meanwhile at Arkham Asylum, Penguin is in his cell, angered at his failure to claim Gotham for himself. However, a mysterious guard enters his cell, with Penguin assuming that he was sent by LexCorp to kill him in order to tie up loose ends. However, the guard states that Luthor wants to continue working with Mr. Cobblepot in the future. Penguin asks what more or use could he be to Luthor, with a guard stating that all Luthor simply said is that for the so-called heroes, there's going to be nothing more than gloom and doom. A post-credit scene shows John and Natasha in their new house in Smallville, with Natasha stating how incredible it was that Bruce Wayne of all people helped them find a new place to live, and wonders if Batman and him know each other. John unpassively agrees and then states that he has to get back to work, followed by John entering his garage workshop and begins writing blueprints for a new type of armor with Superman's signature S along with the sledgehammer weapon. At the corner of the blueprints is written, Steel. What's up guys, JT Anime Nerd here bringing you all that nerdy goodness. Today I'm going to be going over my spoiler review of Zack Snyder's Justice League, which is also a continuation of my DC Extended Universe / Snyderverse, as Zack Snyder's Justice League is a part of it, as I've stated in the past. Now I know I'm way late for this, but since I've been doing revisions and original movie videos about how I utilize and continue the Snyderverse version of the DCEU, I also have to take into account the movies that I don't need to change, one of which is none other than Zack Snyder's Justice League. So instead of doing any revisions and rewrites to this masterpiece, I would rather do my spoiler review on it and make it canon to my version of the DCEU Snyderverse. Now that all that's explained, let's get into the review. First, let's talk about the characters, starting with the hero that was least in the movie, Superman. Despite not being in 80% of the movie, you could feel the impact of Superman's lack of presence. His death left a hole in the world, something that Justice League only portrayed minimally. And then later on, when we get Superman back, it feels earned, with him being portrayed as this new unbeatable obstacle for the main villain, something usually given to the villain alone. Also, Superman in his black suit will always be an iconic suit worn by Henry Cavill. May there one day be hope for his return as Superman, for I'm not giving up on him yet. Then we have Batman and Wonder Woman, who are more or less getting set up for their own progression in character development in this story, as it does seem to kind of hold off development of some characters, but does make them essential to the story. We do go through Batman's guilt for Superman's death and preparation for forming the Justice League, but it felt more like a build-up to his future character arc where everyone else around him seems to die in his stead, as alluded to in the nightmare scene at the near end of the movie. Wonder Woman's built-up character arc seems to be her missing Themyscira and wanting to return home. This arc would later be meant to come up in Zack Snyder's Justice League 2. Now we get to Aquaman, aka Arthur Curry, who is essentially pushed into accepting his role as the hero and future king of Atlantis, acting as the gateway to introducing a hidden part of the world, as well as helping introduce his love interest Mira and his mentor Volko. Mira's backstory is known to have changed in this movie, with it being revealed that her parents died in the wars. We also get hints to Orm in this movie, being mentioned by name, but is focused more on the rebels instead of the threat posed by the main villain of the movie. Now we get on to the Flash, who is definitely the heart of the team. Flash is the typical, somewhat optimistic and comic relief character with a tragic past of his own, revealed to be his father being framed for his mother's murder. An incident that led the Flash to act introduces us to his future love interest, Iris West. After that, Flash would show more of his personality in his interactions with the team, and even was able to expand upon how his powers work, especially when it came to manipulating time. This gave us an unforgettable scene, where the Flash actually turned back time itself to save the lives of everyone who would have been killed by the mother boxes. Now we definitely got to talk about Cyborg, whose character was unjustly taken from the Justice League film. I tell you, WB talks about Cyborg as much as the Madrigal family talks about Bruno, am I right? Anyway, I'm so happy we got to see Cyborg's backstory and character arc in this movie, with Cyborg getting to learn how to utilize his powers, even helping a mother struggling financially. He have enough money to be set for life. We even see the core of his character arc. His father sacrifices himself so Cyborg has a chance to find and defeat the main villain. We also see Cyborg's character arc come full circle when he confronts the spirits of the mother boxes, claiming to them that he's not broken. Cyborg is also a gateway at seeing more of the Justice League's future, witnessing the deaths of Wonder Woman and Aquaman, as well as the aftermath of Lois Lane's death and Superman's corruption, all at the hands of Darkseid, leading to the nightmare future, which also shows us a cameo of Kilowog, a Green Lantern, by the way, and of course Superman holding Batman's mask to signify that Batman's dead. Now let's get to my second favorite character in the movie, the main villain, Steppenwolf. In Justice League, he just seemed like a generic villain with no personality and backstory, and even his design was very questionable. However, in this movie, Steppenwolf is a kind of tragic villain who just wants to go home, but is charged with conquering 50,000 in worlds before or then, until he finds the anti-life equation and finally has his chance to come home and even meet with his master Darkseid again. Before we get to Darkseid, I have to admire how much much of a threat Steppenwolf was in this movie, with him easily defeating the Amazons, Atlanteans, and even how much of a threat he was to the Justice League as a whole. The final battle came to a point where the Justice League needed Superman to fight against Steppenwolf in order to pull the mother boxes apart. And if Superman wasn't there, they'd all be screwed either way. Now, when it comes to my very favorite character, Darkseid, he truly shows his presence. A lot more than Thanos has in one movie where he wasn't the main villain. The scene where Darkseid invades Earth will always be an iconic moment, showing characters from the mythologies of multiple heroes coming together to fight back against his invasion, which ended in failure thanks to the antics of Ayer, surprisingly. While minimal, Darkseid's presence in the film is iconic and menacing, and the voice actor of Ray Porter will always be our favorite Darkseid, and I don't think anyone can play a live-action Darkseid as great as Ray Porter. Hashtag Darkseid is. Now, when it comes to the minor characters, I'd say they are Alfred, Iris, Ryan Choi, Jim Gordon, Crispus Allen. By the way, Ryan Choi is a future hero known as the Atom, and Crispus Allen is a future hero known as the Spectre, and Desaad, Darkseid's advisor. Now, we also get a cameo of Granny Goodness during one scene, but she never speaks. Now, Lois Lane and Martha Kent are treated as side characters, but are meant to be the gateway into showing a life without Clark Kent, not Superman, and how dark their lives have become since his passing. Surprisingly, it would be Martha's form that would encourage Lois to keep on living despite Clark's death, but it's soon revealed that the person was impersonating Martha and is revealed to be none other than Martian Manhunter. Now, Martian Manhunter is actually revealed to be who General Swanwick from Man of Steel really is. At the very end of the movie, Martian Manhunter introduces himself to Bruce Wayne and becomes a sort of last-minute member of the Justice League. Now, originally we were supposed to see Jon Stewart's Green Lantern and Kilowog at the end, but Martian Manhunter took their place because of studio interference. Yeah, like that's anything new at this point. However, even though the scene isn't released yet, I'm making the Green Lantern introduction scene canon to my version of the Snyderverse, so I hope that satisfies some of you guys. Two other surprise characters we would see, only at this point it wouldn't be much of a surprise due to Justice League. We would see Lex Luthor and Deathstroke meet up. Lex Luthor reveals Batman's identity to Deathstroke, with Deathstroke's intentions seemingly being revenge. This scene would also be meant to lead up to Ben Affleck's The Batman movie, which is actually going to serve as a sequel movie in a Batman sequel movie in my universe. Also, for any who don't know, Deathstroke's full name is Slade Wilson. After this, we would be treated to the nightmare scene, which actually takes place before the nightmare scene in Batman v Superman, where Batman, Mira, Deathstroke, Cyborg, and the Flash would all hide from the parademons, but also end up forming an unlikely alliance with the Joker, once again portrayed by the incredible Jared Leto as David Ayer's darker version of the Joker. Batman is seemingly blamed for the world dying by not being able to protect Lois, leading to her death. But the Joker offers a truce in the form of a playing card and even alludes to his involvement in killing Robin. With all of the tension, the group is eventually found by the corrupted Superman, with Bruce waking up in his penthouse afterwards. The story begins with Abin Sur attempting to escape from a group of yellow glowing robots that are chasing down his pod. Abin Sur uses every weapon in his pod's arsenal to fend off the robots, but ultimately gets his pod damaged and hurtling toward the Milky Way galaxy. Meanwhile, on an unknown planet, a pink-skinned alien wearing a glowing yellow suit is staring at a giant, strange machine while phantom voices begin to echo from his ring. The robots approach and ask the alien if they should continue to pursue, with the alien saying yes, but he will join them in pursuing Abin Sur as well now that he's cornered. Meanwhile, on Earth, Hal Jordan, an Air Force pilot, portrayed by Tom Cruise, is on active duty in Afghanistan and is flying in a new experimental jet. After bringing down a few enemy jets, Hal is informed by his superior officer to return to base. However, Hal notices that a friend of his is pinned down by enemy jets and attempts a rescue. However, Hal's commanding officer orders him to return to base, but Hal refuses and goes rogue, eventually saving his fellow Air Force pilot. Back at the Air Force base in the U.S., Hal is being reprimanded for defying orders at the mercy of his commanding officer. Hal argues the merits of how anyone in their right mind would just leave a soldier to die. Hal's commanding officer responds by dishonorably discharging Hal, as this isn't his first offense at insubordination, followed by stating that morality has no place in war, and that the key value of a soldier is to follow orders and die for the greater good of their country. Before the discharge is carried out, however, Carol Ferris steps into the room, stating that to penalize Hal would bring a bad impression on the Air Force's higher-ups, as the soldier Hal saved is the son of a politician that supports the Air Force, this ultimately saving Hal Jordan from being discharged at all. As Carol and Hal leave the building, Hal thanks Carol for saving his job, but Carol warns him that he can't keep acting so recklessly. Hal argues he's not the kind of person to just trade lives away and can't just sit by when he knows he can save a fellow soldier in arms. Carol states that she understands, but reminds Hal that he got lucky this time for saving a politician's son, but then reveals that the sad reality of saving him from being court-martialed was to have him honorably discharged, admitting that he won't go on any more tours. Hal has a hard time understanding why they could just throw away good soldiers like that, with Carol simply stating that it's the reality of being a soldier, followed by Carol taking her leave. Moments later at a shelter for homeless vets in Coast City, Hal looks around in shock, witnessing people who fought for their country left in bad conditions. Some are even struggling to survive, and most don't even have a home. Hal then meets up with his friend John Stewart, the architect of the shelter, who also loves to spend time there with his fellow former soldiers in arms, who Hal Jordan refers to as the master builder of Coast City himself. More moments later, John is filled in on Hal's situation involving his discharge. John states that he can relate, revealing that he was ordered to do something unforgivable that would have cost innocents their lives, but refused to do it and threatened to expose his commanding officer, leading to his own honorable discharge. Hal rants about how the people they fought so hard for can just treat them like weapons, with John stating that in war, they are weapons that sign away their lives and call it an act for the greater good. However, John goes on to say that while they are soldiers of the government, they decide what kind of soldier they want to be, and that they always have the free will to do so. After thinking on this for a moment, Carol approaches Hal and John and tells Hal that she may have found a way for Hal to keep making money from his Air Force experience. Carol reveals that the politician whose son Hal saved was helping to fund a new flight simulator, and Hal was recommended for the job. At first, Hal was skeptical, but Carol reveals that despite his honorable discharge, his commanding officer is looking for ways to cut his pension. So this will at least get him money he needs to continue living, should that ever happen. The next day near sunset, Hal enters the flight simulator and prepares for testing over a desert. After being given the go-ahead, Hal eventually takes off and seemingly begins to get the hang of the simulator. As the sun is setting, however, Hal begins to notice what appears to be a fireball falling from the sky, only for it to pass him at a breakneck speed and suddenly knock him off course. While he did survive, Hal ended up crashing right near where the fireball had landed. After exiting the flight simulator, Hal would approach the crash-landed fireball only to find out that it's a space pod holding an alien in it. Despite his shock, Hal notices that the alien seems to be hurt and sending out a distress signal to anyone who can hear him, but to no avail. Following his instincts, Hal ran to the alien and helped him out of his pod. As he lay dying, he asks Hal his name, and introduces himself as Abensur. Just then, Abensur's ring leaves Abensur's finger and approaches Hal, making Abensur realize that his time is up. After explaining that the ring has chosen him, Abensur gives Hal his power battery and tells Hal to state the oath and the bequeathing will be done. At first, Hal tries to shrug off the ring and tells Abensur that he'll get him help, but Abensur insists, making it clear that he doesn't have much time left. Wanting to give Abensur his dying wish, he follows his instructions to put on the ring and place it within the power battery. As Hal does this, he sees a vision of a faraway planet, followed by Hal Jordan stating the oath as if it was programmed into his head. "In brightest day and blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let all those who worship evil's might beware my power, Green Lantern's light. After stating this oath, Abinsur's suit dematerializes and then rematerializes onto Hal Jordan, giving him his iconic Green Lantern mask as well. Before dying in Hal's arms, Abinsur tells Hal to beware the Yellow Lantern. Just as the military was closing in on Hal, his Green Lantern ring whisked him off a planet, leaving the military and Carol to end up finding Abinsur, the pod, in an empty, destroyed flight simulator. Meanwhile, Hal's ring brings him to the planet Oa, the base planet of the Green Lanterns. Hal arrives and looks around at the wondrous city, the lanterns all flying around, seeing the grave sites of multiple lanterns, and even sees the central power battery of Oa in the distance. Hal is then approached by two aliens who introduce themselves as Tomar Ray, voiced by Hugh Laurie, the recruitment ambassador of the Green Lanterns, and Kilowog, voiced by Brad Garrett, who acts as the training officer for new recruits. As Hal is slightly panicked and hyperventilating, Tomar calms him down by explaining the planet Oa, the place where Green Lanterns come and go from duty. Hal asks what a lantern is, Tomar replying that the Green Lantern Corps patrols and protects the universe from intergalactic threats. Hal then reluctantly realizes that it seems what humans have always thought was right, that they were never alone in the universe. However, Tomar explains that allowing Earthlings to believe extraterrestrial life didn't exist was the Guardians' way of protecting them after the last Green Lanterns that were there died. Hal asks who the Guardians are, to which Kilowog explains that the Guardians of the Universe are just that, Guardians who founded the Green Lantern Corps who have charged themselves with the welfare of the universe as they see fit. Tomar then reluctantly explains that they are the reason they have met up with Hal, as the Guardians question a human Green Lantern due to history and with Earthlings, much to Hal's curiosity. Moments later, Tomar and Kilowog escort Hal to the Guardians of the Universe. The Guardian Ganthet, voiced by Ian McKellen, introduces his name and gives off a compassionate impression while his fellow Guardians appear cold and distant. Other than Ganthet, the Guardians casually discuss if they should accept or dispose of Hal Jordan, even contemplate killing him. However, Hal openly refuses the position, stating that he just wanted to give a dying man his last wish, surprising Tomar, Kilowog, and even the Guardians. Hal then explains that a pinkish-skinned alien fell from the sky and was dying, and that he asked that his last wish be him saying some kind of oath. Tomar then recognizes that Abin-Sur has died after hearing those words, much to Hal's curiosity. The Guardians then explain that Abin-Sur was charged with patrolling Sector 2814, the very sector the Milky Way galaxy exists in. The Guardians, now recognizing a sector unpatrolled, now feels that if the Ring has chosen an Earthling, then perhaps he can make himself useful in the defense of Sector 2814. The Guardians then ask Hal if he knows how Abin-Sur crash-landed, with Hal replying that he just said to beware the Yellow Lantern, leading the Guardians to dismiss Hal and charge Tomar and Kilowog with his training. As the trio take their leave, Ganthet reminds the Guardians that he warned that this would happen, and that he has returned. One of the Guardians states that this has to be impossible, and that they thought they took care of him. The female Guardian states that they'll send their best lanterns to the planet Xanshi to find him, for that is where he would be. Meanwhile, on Earth and at Area 51, scientists, soldiers, and even Carol Ferris are inspecting the pod in Abin-Sur's body. Before the autopsy can begin on the body, the electricity begins to flicker, as well as loud bangs can be heard throughout the building. Just then, the robots that were chasing Abin-Sur in space crash into the room, holding the people in the room hostage and kill those who resist, with the exception of Carol due to her getting knocked into a pile of discarded metal materials and being able to hide in the pile. Just then, the Yellow Lantern, portrayed by Luke Evans, slowly descends through the hole in the ceiling, followed by going up to the body of Abin-Sur and genuinely mourns his death. The Yellow Lantern then speaks to Abin-Sur's body, stating that he hopes Abin-Sur's soul somehow finds peace within the green flame. The Yellow Lantern then turns to the hostage and introduces himself as Sinestro, stating that this man landed on this planet with a green ring, asking if anyone knows who has it. As everyone remains silent, Sinestro asks if they are afraid, to which their expression and nods confirm as such, with Sinestro responding that it's good that they are afraid. Sinestro then goes on to state that fear is survival. fear is life, and that fear is what peace truly looks like. Just then, a soldier pulls out his gun, only for Sinestro to create a construct of an alien serpentine creature and wraps it around the soldier's hands and neck. Sinestro then explains that fear and willpower, however, will bring death, followed by Sinestro snapping the soldier's neck, killing him instantly. Sinestro then tells those who are afraid of him to step forward, having the robots let the hostages go. Sinestro then presents these scared humans with multiple Yellow Lantern power rings. Those who are afraid end up becoming Yellow Lanterns and fall under the control of the yellow energy. But one colonel in the room is rejected by one of the rings, revealing to be not afraid of Sinestro. Sinestro genuinely apologizes that he's not afraid, followed by killing him with a dagger construct. Carol looks on from under the pile of metal material she's hiding under in fear as Sinestro and the Yellow Lanterns take their leave. Back on Oa, Hal begins his training montage, with Tomar stating that the Green Lantern ring can construct anything out of the green light of willpower, and that the only limit is one's imagination. Hal begins with simple constructs like swords and guns, but shows that he doesn't have the training to handle them, leading Kilowog to teach Hal physical combat training, as well as training with certain constructs. The montage shows Hal's progression in training, from not being able to handle and create certain constructs to mastering his ring's powers. Meanwhile, on the barren planet of Zanshi, units of Green Lanterns led by a lantern named Boudica looks around and scans the area for life forms, only to eventually be ambushed by a group of robots that one Green Lantern refers to as Manhunters. As many of the Green Lanterns are killed, few of them end up being captured by the Manhunters, including Boudica. Back on Oa after a couple weeks of training, Tomar tells Hal to charge his ring in his power battery every couple of hours or the ring's energy output will run out, as well as explain that the ring's sentient and acts like an artificial intelligence and will assist him when he needs it. Hal then does as Tomar says and charges his ring. Tomar then demonstrates his ring's sentience by asking it how many planets exist in the Milky Way solar system, with the ring's automated voice replying that the Milky Way solar system is comprised of 8 planets. Just then, Hal and friends look up to find many Green Lanterns heading over to the central power battery, a place that Tomar explains is mostly used for meetings. Hal and friends then follow the crowd and end up at a meeting held by Helvanite, an alien squirrel. Helvanite tells the Lanterns that a distress signal from a missing Green Lantern has been sent from planet Alo in Sector 2828, which is under attack by the Dominators. The Guardians have decreed that 3 units are to be sent in assistance to battle and aid in evacuation of civilians, that being Unit Alpha, Unit Beta, and Unit Sigma, which is Tomar's unit. Tomar then points out that the people of Alo have refused their help for years and asks why they would want their help now. Helvanite simply states that they don't know why they've changed their minds. He only knows that their orders are to save the planet. Despite being skeptical, Hal and company leave to address planet Alo's problems. Back on Zanshi, the Manhunters escort the remaining Green Lanterns on the planet and present them to Sinestro, accompanied by the members of his new corps. Boudica is then stunned to see Earthlings with yellow power rings, with Sinestro stating that they are but the first few in his new corps, and they may be free to join as well. Boudica then states that she'd rather die than join him. Sinestro is then given her Green Lantern power ring by the Manhunter who apprehended her, followed by Sinestro kneeling down to Boudica's level. Sinestro then calls Boudica a poor girl and states that the Guardians really have brainwashed her with their lies, but fear shall be hers and everyone's salvation. Grasping her ring in his hand, Sinestro transforms Boudica's ring into a Yellow Lantern ring. The Manhunter then forces Boudica's hand out, with Sinestro placing the yellow ring on her finger, stating that her fears shall turn her from a mindless soldier into a warrior of freedom. Boudica then transforms into a Yellow Lantern under Sinestro's control. Just then, a phantom voice from Sinestro's ring informs him of what's happening on planet Alo, being able to sense Abensor's ring. Sinestro feels relief in finding out where Aben's ring has gone to. Boudica Boudica asks Sinestro if he wishes them to accompany him, but Sinestro states that it was time he met with his old friend's successor face to face. Meanwhile, on planet Alo, Dominators are fighting against alien soldiers, as well as killing many civilians trying to run away. As the units arrive, Helvanite orders everyone to focus on the battle and evacuating civilians. Hal then looks on and sees many injured alien soldiers, still alive despite being gravely wounded. Hal then points out to Helvanite that the soldiers on the battlefield need assistance as well. However, Helvanite states that they are to only focus on what the Guardians order them to do. Helvanite then orders all units to do as they're told, leading them to spread across the planet. As Tomar and Kilowog are about to take their leave, they notice Hal looking on in the battlefield, mortified at the sight. As Tomar tries to tell Hal that he can't save everyone, Hal states that they at least have to try, and asks Tomar and Kilowog to help him save the wounded soldiers. Tomar states that to defy the Guardians is to risk great penalty, sometimes even death depending on the offense. Hal then tells Tomar to look out on that battlefield, and states that all life is worth fighting for, even if there's zero to little hope in saving everyone. Tomar agrees, but warns Hal of the repercussions, as well as how it will affect the mission. Hal then states that the mission is simple: protect the weak. As Hal flies toward the battlefield, Kilowog expresses how he's beginning to like Hal, with Tomar in agreement, and so agrees in turn to aid Hal in his endeavor with Kilowog following behind him. As the Green Lantern units push back the Dominator soldiers and help evacuate alien civilians, Helvanite notices Tomar's group acting on their own, with Helvanite attempting to warn the group that they will be reported for insubordination. Tomar then cleverly and politely insults Helvanite, openly defying his command. As an alien soldier is at the mercy of a Dominator, Hal, Tomar, and Kilowog act quickly, saving as many soldiers as they can, and while also pushing back the Dominator front-line army. After saving what was left of the soldiers, the Green Lanterns decide to take the opportunity to push back the Dominators as best they can. Meanwhile, as Hal and company scour the battlefield for more fallen soldiers, Hal asks his ring if there are any life forms on the battlefield left, with his ring stating that there is one left, revealed to be a fallen Green Lantern. Tomar then confirms that she is Nagila Gunner, his lover. Hal, Tomar, and Kilowog are able to wake Nagila up, who confirms that she was charged with protecting Sector 2828, and even reveals that she sent the distress signal. Tomar asks her what happened, with Nagila stating that Aylin has been asking for the Guardians for help for many years, but never received an answer, and so the Fallen Lantern knew that a distress signal was sent straight to another Green Lantern was something that could not be ignored. Tomar is confused as to why the Guardians would ignore a distress call, with the fallen Green Lantern stating that they refused but they didn't care. To the Guardians, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. Nagila dies in Tomar's arms, leaving Tomar in despair, her ring leaving to find another to choose, and thanking the group for at least coming to her rescue at the moment they saw her. Nagila even telling Tomar that she loves him. Just then, Helvanite and the remaining Green Lanterns succeed in pushing the Dominators back to their base on the planet and rendezvous with Tomar. Helvanite scolds the group for defying orders, especially from the Guardians, but Hal reveals what Nagila had just told them, spurring confusion and slight panic among the remaining Green Lanterns present. Helvanite tries to justify and defend the Guardians' decision, stating that the Lantern should have done on her job. Tomar then snaps at Helvanite in anger, claiming that Nagila was a person and didn't deserve to die out here, believing that her own people would not rescue her. Suddenly, the Dominator base explodes, causing the Green Lanterns to be pushed away and spread out across the battlefield. As the dust settles, Hal and many other Green Lanterns look upon the Dominator base, destroyed along with the Dominators. Hal and company then look as they see faint yellow lights, revealing themselves to be Sinestro and his corps of Yellow Lanterns. Sinestro then proclaims that it was planet Alo's fear that brought them, and now it shall be their salvation. Sinestro then begins to spread multiple Yellow Lantern rings to the people of Alo, who are afraid and therefore vulnerable to the Yellow Power Ring's control. As the Green Lanterns look on in shock, Tomar and Kilowog are shocked to see Sinestro, someone they seem to know very well. As Sinestro looks down to face Hal Jordan, he then flies over to him as Hal readies himself for battle. As Sinestro looks at Hal's ring, he recognizes it as Abinsur's ring and is surprised to find that it's chosen an Earthling. Not in the mood for talking, Hal uses as many creative constructs as he needs to defeat Sinestro, but is easily overpowered, with Sinestro stating that while he may look like a lantern, he is far from one. However, Sinestro states that it's not too late for him and asks him to give in to his fears before he falls into the lies told by the Guardians. Sinestro's words confusing Hal. Not wanting to be discouraged, Hal continues to fight, but is still easily overcome by Sinestro's skill and prowess. Sinestro then states that he was once like Hal, a believer in the Guardians' quest for peace and to defeat evil, but learned the hard way that in reality true peace can only be found in fear. Sinestro then reaches out his hand to Hal, genuinely asking him to come to him and to come to Parallax. Just then, Hal's ring reacts, creating an energy field around him, and swiftly escorts him back to Oa, just as the rings of the other Green Lanterns do the same. Just then, an alien Yellow Lantern asks what Sinestro plans to do now, with him replying that he's returning to Zanshi and asks his new recruit to help him send a message to Oa. Back on Oa, the Green Lantern units all return, but in smaller numbers than they left. Without hesitation, Tomar flies over to where the Guardians make council, with Hal and Kilowog following behind. Tomar swoops in anger and reprimands the Guardians for lying and telling them that Sinestro was dead. One of the Guardians warns Tomar to watch his tongue, just as Hal and Kilowog arrive behind Tomar. Ganthet then explains that they've had their suspicions, but could not prove them fact until Hal mentioned Abinsur's last words to them. Ganthet then explains that they sent a unit of their best lanterns to Zanshi, but they didn't come back. Hal then explains that the reason they haven't come back is because they've been turned into Yellow Lanterns, and they've seen it happen due to these mysterious yellow power rings. The female Guardian states that such a thing is impossible, as the coordinate used to forge the rings are long beyond their reach. However, Ganthet mentions how the people of Zanshi's research on the multiverse is what granted them their understanding of it, and wouldn't be surprised if Sinestro somehow found a way to control that technology to reach the planet of Quard. One of the Guardians then points out that if that's true, then it won't be long before he has the power to release Parallax, leading the female Guardian to scold her fellow peer, stating that they are never to say its name. Tomar then states that he thought Parallax was a myth, followed by asking the Guardians how much have they been keeping from the other Green Lanterns. The female Guardian tells Tomar that he's on thin ice and will not talk to them with such disrespect, but Hal intervenes, stating that if Tomar won't, then he will. One of the Guardians then states that he realizes why Tomar is acting the way he is, as Earth has always poisoned the minds of their fellow Lanterns. Hal then shows confusion at the Guardian's words, with Hal asking what Parallax even is. Gant then explains the concept of the emotional spectrum and how each spectrum possesses a cosmic entity that represents it in the form of various creatures, revealing that Parallax is the entity of the yellow light of fear, and was sealed away within a place called the antimatter universe long ago. Tomar then interrupts the conversation in anger, demanding to know why planet Alo's pleas for help fell on deaf ears. Ganthet then regrettably explains that the war between the aliens and the Dominators was once seen as a minor break in peace, and decided that one lantern should have been enough to quell the war. However, they knew that Sinestro might show himself if they sent units of lanterns to a place where the fear was great, but didn't anticipate the existence of more Yellow Lantern rings. Tomar then realizes and states that the Guardian sent them to Alo to die just to see if their hunch about Sinestro was right, to which the female Guardian argues that a soldier dies for the cause they fight for. Such is the nature of keeping the peace. However, Hal questions who they are to decide such things, as they are not gods. The female Guardian then scolds Hal for his arrogance, but Hal stands firm. The female guardian states that she's had enough of this false lantern, and so snaps her fingers and orders all units of Green Lanterns to apprehend Hal Jordan. As all the Green Lanterns converge in the presence of the Guardians of the Universe, Hal tells them that they're not pawns of the Guardians, but living people who can think for themselves and have a choice. The female Guardian then states that there's no point for Hal to try and convince them to defy orders, as half of them were saved by the Guardians and therefore are indebted to them, or believe in their view of the needs of the many outweighing the needs of the few. Before anything could happen, however, an army of Manhunters and Yellow Lanterns attack Oa, attempting to assassinate the Guardians of the Universe. A huge battle breaks out with the Green Lanterns fighting against the Yellow Lanterns and Manhunters. After a lengthy battle between the two factions, 4 of the 8 Guardians are killed by the hands of the Manhunter robots and Yellow Lanterns, leaving Ganthet, the female Guardian, and 2 other Guardians left. As it seems that the Yellow Lantern Corps is retreating, one of them shows a construct of Sinestro, who gives a message to Oa and lists planets he plans on invading in multiple sectors, one of which being Earth. The Yellow Lantern Corps and Manhunters take their leave. Moments later, as everyone gets their footing back after dealing with an attack on Oa, Hal states that they need to take the fight to Sinestro on planet Xanshi. However, the female Guardian states that that's exactly what he wants, to leave Oa unprotected so he can attempt to destroy the central power battery, confusing Hal even more. Tomar explains that if the central power battery is destroyed, then all of the power the rings give them will be lost forever. Hal still states that they can't just wait around for the listed planets to get destroyed, including Earth, which is his home world. The female Guardian then aggressively scolds Hal, asking him when he's going to get it yet, that sacrifices for the greater good are sometimes needed to protect the universe, and that includes the very soldiers that fight for them. Hal then looks around, seeing that no one, not even Tomar and Kilowog, are with him in taking the fight to Sinestro, knowing the stakes, that is. Hal then decides to go to Xanshi himself as the Green Lanterns see him go off on his own. Hal then asks his ring to the location of planet Xanshi, to which it points him in the right direction. After a montage of passing planets and sectors, Hal makes it to planet Xanshi, which looks to be a fractured planet, with its debris floating around all around the area. As Hal lands on the planet, he looks around to see a barren and bleak wasteland of a world. Suddenly, Sinestro appears, asking him if it's a horrid sight. Sinestro then states that a world with so much hope were deceived and lied to by the Guardians. Hal's curiosity is piqued, as he asks Sinestro if the Guardians protected this planet. However, Sinestro states that the protection was what they promised, but in the end they left it to die at the hands of a great darkness. Hal then asks Sinestro why he's doing all this, Sinestro replying by asking Hal to follow him, and he will show him why, and so leads Hal to the top side of the planet. Sinestro then presents Hal with a giant, ancient-looking machine, introducing it as the antimatter machine. Sinestro then explains that it was created in the hopes of expanding the Guardians' reach across dimensions. However, they didn't anticipate the great darkness that would emerge from this very machine, one that would conquer this planet and rob them of their technology before wiping them out for their resistance. Sinestro then states that the Guardians did nothing but sit on their ivory chairs and watch as one of their most devoted planets died right before their eyes, and felt no remorse for the consequences of their reckless fearlessness. Hal questions why they wouldn't do anything, to which Sinestro responds that the answer is simple: meager superiority, as they thrive on spreading their sense of control and superior intelligence for all to fall under. Sinestro even states that the Manhunters were used to recruit Green Lanterns by putting their species in grave danger, not caring about the lives they risk or cost in the process, but has no more need for them now. Sinestro then goes on to state that their willpower is nothing more than a ploy for power, or itself, and that fear is the universe's only salvation for freedom. Hal asks how fear could ever bring freedom, leading Sinestro to use his ring in order to show a yellow construct reenactment of his backstory. Sinestro first reveals that he was stationed to protect the sector that Xanshi was in, only to witness an armada of apocalyptic ships attacking Xanshi. Despite Sinestro sending out a distress call, no one came to Xanshi's aid, and so witnessed its destruction. In the aftermath, Sinestro pleaded with the Guardians to send the whole Corps to deal with this threat, but his plea fell on deaf ears. So Sinestro put together a rogue team of Green Lanterns, comprised of himself, Abin-Sur, and Yelin Gur, that allied themselves with the forces of Earth in order to combat this great darkness. During the battle, however, Sinestro witnessed the death of Yelin Gur, followed by the death of many Green Lanterns around him. This led him to be scared, traumatizing him to the point where fear took over his mind, and his green ring transformed into the first yellow ring. Sinestro utilized this power to its greatest in an attempt for self-preservation. But when Abin-Sur saw Sinestro's new power, he acted and quickly defeated Sinestro. Despite the Alliance's victory, and Abin-Sur's knowledge of the threat fear posed to his Corps' willpower, he decided to spare him and exile him from the Corps, to which Sinestro did not resist. Sinestro then found himself on planet Xanshi, surrounded by death and dismantled manhunters. Sinestro would begin to hear a voice coming from his ring, which leads him to the destroyed antimatter machine. The entity calling from within Sinestro's ring showed him a vision of a peaceful world born of fear, one of subjugation, but true order and peace, as he shows the vision of him ruling over the universe and bringing order and true law to the universe. Back in the present, Hal still doesn't understand how fear could possibly bring peace to the universe, leading Sinestro to explain that fear leads to survival and a sense of self-preservation, meaning that no single person will have to answer to anyone but themselves from there on out, being able to fight for causes they themselves truly believe in. Hal argues, however, that living in fear isn't the same as freedom, that it's just exchanging one set of shackles for another. Sinestro then states that they are the same, but the one difference they have is that Sinestro, just like the Guardians, recognizes that true peace will always require sacrifice. But at least with fear, people still have the power to choose for themselves. In retaliation, Hal unleashes as many constructs as he can at Sinestro, but despite landing a few hits, is still overpowered by Sinestro. As a result of the battle, a piece of the planet breaks off, revealing that way beneath the antimatter machine is a newly forged yellow central power battery. Sinestro then explains that eons ago, the Guardians sealed away a powerful being, an entity that represents the emotional spectrum of fear, a being known as Parallax. Sinestro then reveals that with enough fear spread throughout the universe, he can use its energy to fuel the antimatter machine and free Parallax from the antimatter universe. Sinestro then thanks Hal for the stir he created on Oa, for he's done exactly what he wanted. Back on Oa, a Lantern begins questioning the Guardians about what they talked about involving Planet Alo and the fallen Green Lantern, angering them and leading them to dodge the question. However, Kilowog begins to argue on behalf of the Green Lantern Corps. The conversation sows seeds of fear throughout the Corps. Just then, Boudica appears over the central power battery of Oa, leading in the Green Lantern Corps to witness her sacrifice herself and fall into the battery. This in turn transforms the green light of willpower into the yellow light of fear, transforming a majority of the Green Lantern Corps into Yellow Lanterns, excluding Tomar, Kilowog, and a few other Green Lanterns as well, who all lose their powers instead of transforming due to their unbreakable willpower. Back on Xanshi, Hal begins to feel the effect of the central power battery's transformation, but instead is depowered, returned to being a regular person. Sinestro then looks upon Hal and notices that his jacket shows that he is a soldier, to which he points out as to how he understands why he didn't change, and so considers Hal a disappointment. Sinestro then fires a beam of yellow light at Hal, leading Hal to fall off a piece of the planet, seemingly falling to his death. Sinestro then hears the phantom voice from his ring, and so activates the antimatter machine by powering it with the energy from the yellow light of fear born from both central power batteries. Suddenly, the antimatter machine creates what looks to be a prototype, a boom tube, into the antimatter universe, releasing a giant creature made from the yellow light of fear, the entity known as Parallax. Sinestro then offers himself to Parallax as his vessel, leading to his suit transforming into a yellow light-hardened armor. Sinestro then sends a message to his Sinestro Corps, telling them that the first planet they will spread fear in will be Earth in memoriam for his friend Abin-Sur. Meanwhile, Hal is nearly seen at death's door, unconscious on a piece of Xanshi. Hal's power ring then spreads a bit of its power to Hal, delving deep into Hal's mind. Within his mindscape, Hal meets with what's left of Abinsor's consciousness within the ring. Hal apologizes to Abinsor for all that's happened and states that everyone was right, that he can't save everyone, and now because of his recklessness, everyone is going to pay the price. Abinsor states that he, Sinestro, and Yellen grew up together and learned that everything Sinestro explained isn't wrong when it comes to the part about people fighting for causes they don't believe in, but that he fails to recognize those who are fighting for what they believe in. He just never knew it. Abinsur then states that he learned a long time ago that there's a reason that the emotional spectrum goes hand in hand. Abinsur states that the emotions aren't meant to be separated, but united, as fear and willpower go hand in hand. Hal, however, reveals that it's never been willpower he's been driven by, but it's the fear that he's driven by, revealing that his biggest fear is losing everyone he cares about after being a soldier and seeing people die around him for so long. Abin expresses that he knows that feeling, but instead of letting the fear control him, he just has to have the willpower to learn from his fears, so he'll know when he's ready to face them. Abinsor then takes his leave, asking Hal to save his friend before Parallax devours him completely. Abin then transforms into a fish-like entity made out of the green light of willpower. A flash of green light snaps Hal awake in reality, his ring suddenly glowing with power greater than before. Meanwhile, Sinestro leads an army of yellow lanterns to Earth, not yet in range of their atmosphere. Just then, a large green light shines in front of them, revealing it to be Hal Jordan as the one and currently only Green Lantern. Sinestro is stunned, questioning how his ring still works. Hal simply states that it seems willpower doesn't come from the central power battery, but from within one's self just as much as fear does. Sinestro orders his entire corps to kill Hal, but Hal retaliates, showing greater power and greater creativity than Sinestro when it comes to the construct he creates as such: vehicles, weapons, and even fictional constructs. In the end, Hal defeats the entire Yellow Lantern Corps single-handedly, angering Sinestro. Sinestro then aggressively asks Hal if he's just devoted to being a soldier for all his life. Hal states that he's no soldier, he's the Green Lantern. Hal then unleashes a hidden power within his ring, revealing the silhouette of the fish-like entity, with Parallax, voiced by James Earl Jones, speaking through Sinestro, recognizing the entity as the entity of willpower known as Ion. With both entities at their back, Hal and Sinestro fight in an epic battle, leading Hal to finally gain the upper hand on Sinestro. When all seems hopeful, however, Parallax begins to talk through Sinestro and presents Tomar and Kilowog, both being held captive by Parallax. However, Sinestro tries to intervene, stating that he doesn't wish to kill any lanterns, but free them from the shackles of the Guardians. Parallax then asserts his dominance over Sinestro's body, revealing that he plans to devour the universe's inhabitants, draining them of their life force through their fear of him. This news makes Sinestro nearly heartbroken, realizing that he's just fallen for another false promise. Hal then decides to unleash a burst of green energy, re-energizing Tomar and Kilowog's lantern rings and giving them their powers back, frustrating Parallax. Parallax then states that if he can't be allowed to devour this universe, then he would rather see it burn. Parallax leads Sinestro's body back to Xanshi, with Hal following behind, but not before informing Tomar and Kilowog to do something for him. Back at Xanshi, Parallax uses its energy to power and attempt to overload the antimatter machine, revealing that the chain reaction between matter and antimatter will cause an explosion equivalent to the Big Bang. Hal then catches up with Parallax, informing him that it's over, but Parallax argues that he's won. How could anything be over? Back at Oa, Tomar and Kilowog meet up with the remaining Guardians, who had hidden in the midst of the Yellow Lantern incident. Together, they utilize the green light of willpower in order to transform the central power battery back to being green. The turned Yellow Lanterns begin to transform back into Green Lanterns. Parallax can feel the shift in the emotional spectrum, shocked at what has just happened. Despite this, it doesn't stop the antimatter machine from activating, causing it to begin to have a meltdown. As their battle continues, Hal utilizes the full power of Ion, freeing Sinestro from Parallax's control, bringing Parallax out into the open. Unexpectedly, the antimatter machine suddenly implodes instead of explodes, sucking everything into an unknown destination. Utilizing Ion's power, Hal attempts to contain the implosion, with Parallax getting sucked into the portal. As Parallax gets sucked into the portal, he begins to try and drag Hal down with him. However, Sinestro surprisingly decides to save Hal and decides to hold Parallax back. As Sinestro looks back, still struggling to hold back the implosion, Sinestro states that Hal is a true Green Lantern before using all of his power to send himself and Parallax into the unknown dimension through the implosion. In the end, Hal successfully contains the implosion, and it ceases to be by becoming a miniature explosion that destroys the central power battery below. Hal then returns to Oa with minimal damage from the explosion, met with cheers from very few lanterns and surprising stares from the majority of them. The female Guardian and a couple of male Guardians scold Hal, blaming him for everything that's happened. However, Ganthet makes it clear that it was their own ignorance that was to blame, and the only thing Hal is guilty of is bringing all of it to light. The Guardians scold Ganthet on siding against them until the Lanterns step in. The Guardians accept Ganthet, ordering them to stay out of it. However, Hal states that enough is enough, and acknowledges that the universe does need their knowledge, but will not bend to their superiority complex anymore. Hal attempts to make a deal with the Guardians, stating that he will continue to follow their wisdom, but will no longer pick and choose who to save. From here on out, the Lanterns decide how they go about their missions. Ganthet accepts the proposal, but the other three refuse, making the rest of the Green Lanterns decide with Hal, shocking the three Guardians. The female Guardian, enraged, attempts to yell at the Green Lanterns for their insubordination, but her words fall on deaf ears. Tomar then states that while they need the wisdom of the Guardians, they also need not just a leader, but a hero, suggesting Hal Jordan to be the leader that they need. Despite Hal's hesitance, everyone raises their ring to Hal, accepting him as their leader. They may need, as Hal looks down at his ring, ready to shoulder the burden of leading the entirety of the Green Lantern Corps. A month later, John Stewart is ending his day leaving a construction site he's the architect for. Just as he's about to enter his car, John hears his name called out by a familiar voice from behind him. John turns to see Hal in his Green Lantern suit, stating that they've got a lot to talk about. A post-credit scene shows Carol Ferris, who I forgot to mention is played by Jennifer Lawrence, flying the simulator, or Hal was earlier, seemingly during another test flight, but flashes of what happened with Sinestro and happy memories with Hal Jordan begin to haunt her, almost seeming like a form of PTSD. Suddenly, Carol's radar begins to pick up a fast-moving object coming toward the direction of her aircraft. Carol swiftly looks up to see what appears to be something bathed in a violet light, hurtle toward her windshield. The screen goes black as we see a flash of violet light and Carol's voice gasping in response. I really hope you guys enjoyed these stories. I really put a lot of effort and work into it, even if the revisions or rewrites or original stories weren't at my best. They were the best I could do at the current time. If you guys like this video, don't forget to like, share, Hulk smash that subscribe button, and turn on notifications so you will be notified of the latest video. And don't forget to check out our merch store or linked in the description and pinned comment section down below. With all that said and done, I'm JT Anime. I'll catch you guys later. And hashtag restore the Snyderverse.